On a stormy night, this lucky man accidentally found a massive time machine. Inside was a massive instruction book. He decided to take a time travel to explore and learn more. In 2037, he saw a disastrous tragedy. After witnessing that terrifying scene, he refused to stand by and do nothing. He was a journalist representing integrity, fairness, and honesty. His duty was to find someone who wanted to help from him. To be allowed to stay in the village, he pretended to be a wise prophet. However, the villagers seemed skeptical as the young man waved his hands and spoke. Upon hearing, everyone in the village were astonished. But they all thought that the young man in front of them was just talking nonsense. But they didn't believe that everything happened before them said exactly what the young man had said before. Whether the young man's name was June or he was the person who didn't know how to keep a secret, he did not only keep this amazing experience but he also shared it with the children on the street. Kids are quite clever and they are not easily fooled. They did not have a faith in Hey June's fairy tales. They were too young but very clever. They kids considered him as a crazy man, not a normal guy. Just go out of the prison, the scruffy man immediately invited to meet Hey June. When everything came to light, Hey June wanted to raise a new question. This time, if it weren't for Hey June using a truth as bait, he might have ended up dead in prison. Hey June shared what he had seen when he time traveled to the year 2037. It was exactly 1 year before Hey June planned to return to Huinan. At that time, Hey June was just curious about where his life would come to. But waiting for Hey June was a disaster. If nothing changed, Hey June would be dead. To make matters worse, Hey June learned that he was the real culprit behind the massacre in Guiyang village years ago. Not only that, the person regarded as the culprit died before being released. It was also the reason why Hey June could assert that man before him was innocent. Upon saying that, Hey June took a box of matches. This was all that the culprit had left at the crime scene. Not wanting to meet his fate too soon, Hey June decided to travel back in time to uncover the truth. Hey June believed that the man before him also wanted to clear his name. That was the reason Hey June wanted to cooperate with this man. Whether by chance or intentionally, a similar box of matches also appeared in front of Yoon Young. Yoon Young was an editor and a small assistant to a famous writer named Go Misuk. On the outside, Misuk appeared gentle and knowledgeable, but inside, she was extremely domineering. Moreover, Misuk was arrogant, presenting herself well but harboring a deceitful nature. Misuk's writing skills were quite lacking. Every time Misuk submitted a draft, June had to revise it extensively before it could be published. All day long, Yoon Young had to follow Misuk. Due to being too busy with work, June didn't have time to be with his mother. One day, June went shopping at the mall with Misuk. Yoon Young struggled to carry the large and small bags to help Misuk. Occasionally, the stalls would have some promotional events. At that time, the shopping mall would be as lively as a vegetable stall at the market. Yoon Young's mother was one of the ladies who came here to hunt for discounts and promotions. In the scramble for goods, she was accidentally pushed and fell over. Just as Yoon Young was about to run over to help his mother, Misuk next to him scoffed. One can be poor but one shouldn't be embarrassed like that. Someone like this truly have nothing more pitiable. By the way, Yoon Young's mom saw her daughter. Before she could even call her out, Yoon Young had already ran away. She felt disappointed and went home. After finishing her work, Yoon Young saw her mother on the street. However, even if June called out loudly, his mother wouldn't respond. Yoon Young passed through the cross and ignored the traffic lights. Seeing her daughter act like that, her mother was very worried. Afterwards she took a new pair of shoes to give her. A good pair of shoes would take us to wonderful places. Since she had to change her shoes in the middle of street and Yoon Young shouted loudly. Yoon Young believed that her mother didn't need to take care of specific things around her. Yoon Young wanted her mother to take care of herself more than Yoon Young. Yoon Young's mother wore a scarf for a long time and it looked very outdated. And her mother's smile had disappeared. After putting away the old ones, she turned and left. Before her leave, she said that from until now she would never interrupt her. And what she had already said made her feel guilty towards her mother. Feeling upset, and she decided to deny the Misuk's call for the first time. That night, Yoon Young received bad news. The police found out Yoon Young's mother's death in the river. On the shore, only the old shoes and a farewell letter remained. June regretted her actions deeply, but it was too late. Seeing her mother's cold body in the morgue, June couldn't help crying. While in deep sorrow, Yoon Young received a message from Misuk notifying her of termination. Indeed, life is already sorrowful, it often brought even more sorrow. Yoon Young deleted that message without hesitation. At that moment, someone called to inform Yoon Young that her alcoholic father was causing trouble again. Seeing the familiar situation, she asked the caller to send her the account number, and she would send her compensation. At that age, Yoon Young sat by the river where her mother had died, reading the farewell letter, and she suddenly saw a pack of matches. Curious, she opened it and discovered a piece of paper that had been soaked in water. June June tried and finally managed to read the writing. The remaining words made her unable to read and decipher. And by the way, his alcoholic father arrived. Upon seeing his father, Yoon Young was very upset. Before leaving, June June's mother called her husband several times, but he never answered. The unfortunate woman, who struggled her entire life, found that in the end, neither her husband or her daughter cared for her. She must have been helpless to have dark thoughts like that. June June felt an overwhelming sense of self-blame. If she could go back to the past, June June would definitely stop her mother from marrying her father. After saying that, Yoon Young turned away and walked in tears. She trudged slowly along the mountain path. Around her neck, she wore the scarf her mother used to wear. In this way, Yoon Young unconsciously walked through the tunnel. This tunnel was, in fact, the pathway of the time machine. On this side, Yoon Young wanted to return to 1987. As she pedaled out at high speed, June June caught a glimpse of a woman ahead. But it couldn't stop. Finding no other ways, she had to steer away. In that moment of impact, the time machine pulled June June back to the past. After waking from her daze, June June continued walking forward. At that moment, she suddenly noticed that the scenery around her felt off. June June stood still, staring at a banner. It clearly stated that the year was 1987, and June June couldn't understand what was happening. And she immediately took her phone to search for the signal. Yoon Young couldn't believe in the absurdity of time travel like this. While wandering with her phone in hand, she suddenly spotted her mother in her youth. And she stood quietly in 5 seconds. She rushed to chase after her mother, but someone stopped her. Hey June took June June into a small alley. Though a bit worried, her mother carefully explained everything to June June. They really travel back to the year 1987. However, due to the incident while passing through the tunnel, the time machine had become damaged. It simply meant that they couldn't return to the current time. June June gasped in shock, covering her mouth and at a loss for words. Hey June thought Yoon Young was crying. When Yoon Young lowered her hand, her mother realized she was crying tears of joy. And Hey June couldn't understand what she thought. Yoon Young chased after her mother to a club. Yoon Young's mother shyly stepped in wearing a short dress. She hesitantly approached inside. No matter the era was, the atmosphere was more vibrant than ever before. As soon as her friends entered, they eagerly hit the dance floor. But only Yoon Young's mother came to the restroom to calm down. She went to the restroom to find her mom. She couldn't believe her young mother who was standing in front of her. She afterwards pinched her mother's cheek. It was so soft that made her feel so astonished. Yoon Young exclaimed, and tears immediately fell like rain. She hugged her mother tightly. She promised not to be stubborn again and would never argue with her mother anymore. She felt even less able to criticize her mother's plain appearance, fearing it would embarrass her. June June cried so hoarsely that Sunny thought she was dealing with a creep. Sunny carefully stared at June June, her forehead bruised and her expression a mix of tears and laughter. Not only she kept calling her mom without pause, she considered the girl in front of her being crazy. Thinking of this, Sunny was panicked and quickly ran out of the restroom. Coincidentally, the police suddenly burst in for an unexpected inspection. The police has arrested all the underage teenagers. Just then, Sunny stepped out, bewildered. Her friends had all been rounded up. The police officer turned and stared intently at Yoon Young. Hey June appeared all the teenagers including Yoon Young. The police officer, of course, disagreed. He boldly stepped up to Hey June to confront him. Hey June recognized this officer. Many years later, Hey June visited the Young Six. After the incident in the village, he went away and lived in obscurity for nearly 30 years. They glared tightly, neither willing to back down. It wasn't until the principal arrived that the officer reluctantly released the group of girls. The father took Sun-e go home and Yoon Young just chased after Hey June. Hey June scolded Yoon Young for considering the danger. He warned that without his arrival, she would be arrested for all life without ID. In this era, anyone without ID would be considered a spy. Yoon Young wanted to explain that she was so upset since she saw her mother, but Yoon Young asked Hey June and asked who he was and why he stabbed her. After thinking, Hey June took Yoon Young to the place where time machine was broken and Yoon Young was amazed. Hey June couldn't understand. The time machine should become transparent and invisible in the tunnel, making collisions impossible. Could it be that June June had something on her that allowed her to time travel? She looked herself over from head to toe, noting that her shoes were clearly brand new. Yoon Young thought that it could be due to Hey June accidentally caused while listening to music or passing through the tunnel. This made him feel speechless and he felt guilty since he had done both of things during the accident. While they talked, a tractor slowly approached. Seeing their beloved teacher in trouble, the villagers eagerly rushed to help. Hey June's home was a fairly large apartment. Although simply decorated, the style was quite impressive, leaving June June very surprised. June June was surprised that Hey June had such a large house. On top of that, he was a beloved teacher in the village. Jun could easily live well without returning to the 21st century. He didn't respond but promised to repair the vehicle quickly. During this time, Yoon Young had to stay at his house, and moreover, she was not allowed to change anything without permission, even if something changed a little. Although Yoon Young nodded obediently, she couldn't stop thinking about how to find her mother. After arranging everything for Yoon Young, Jun came to the garage to repair the cars. But the car structure was so difficult for him to deal with, and Jun helplessly looked at the date noted on the calendar. Only a few days were left until the first incident would occur in Guzheng. Jun had to ensure that Jun returned before it happened. The next morning, Sun Yi's father, who was Yoon Young's grandfather, unexpectedly knocked his door and urged Jun to join the sports festival. As Jun has just gone, Yoon Young cautiously peeked out the gate. And she ran into a neighbor across the street who was Sun Yi. Yoon Young felt so excited and she walked ahead. She followed her mother, and along the way, Sun Yi felt quite worried. When they nearly reached the riverbank, Sun Yi talked and she wanted to know why she was in the restroom and cried pitifully all day. Yoon Young didn't know how to respond appropriately. Just a short distance away was the river where her mother had jumped in. Seeing that Jun remained silent, Sun Yi introduced herself, hoping they could be friends. However, she asked Jun not to call her mom anymore, as it felt very unsettling, and Yoon Young happily agreed. Jun called Sun Yi by her name, and Sun Yi kept responding. Jun followed Sun Yi to her family's small shop. Today her parents had joined the sports festival and left Sun Yi alone to manage the shop. She quietly took the phone to snap a photo of her mother engrossed by the window. Yoon Young remembered that her mother had once dreamt of becoming a writer, and she had found it so silly. Jun quietly left the shop, her mind racing with thoughts. What was it that had caused her to time travel to this place? Jun suddenly remembered telling her father after her mother passed away that if she could go back to the past, she wouldn't let her mother marry him again. She didn't need to have a child like her because both of them always brought her sorrow and sadness. Thinking of this, Jun suddenly stood up. Her mother married in 1988, and perhaps fate was giving her a chance to prevent her parents from being together. When Yoon Young thought, a young man walked past her family's small shop. When Jun returned, she saw her mother helping the young man, who was smiling at her in a silly manner. Even a fool could see the young man's intentions. Jun immediately switched to alert mode. She turned towards and asked for his name. And of course the person in front of her was a drunken man, his father. After saying it, Yoon Young pulled the man to one side and Yoon Young warned him not to come near her mother. He didn't know what was happening and he certainly wasn't willing to back down. He declared that he would try himself to win Yoon Young over. Meanwhile, Jun had achieved an excellent ranking at the sports festival and brought home the famous gold trophy. But when he came, he couldn't find Yoon Young. While tidying up the bed, Jun suddenly spotted a box of matches that Jun had dropped. Jun was extremely surprised. He immediately opened the photo album on his phone. Although the paper inside was fade, the words in the photo was clear. Women reading books are very dangerous. When Jun returned to the shop, her mother had already been taken away by her friends. Seizing the opportunity, Jun secretly saw her mother's diary. But as soon as she opened it, the smile on her face instantly faded. Because what Sun Yi wrote in the diary resembled the first novel Misuk published at the age of 59. And Yoon Young realized something and ran immediately to find Sun Yi. When she arrived, Jun saw her mother being pushed straight into the water by her friends, while they stood on the shore, excitedly watching. She immediately jumped into the water to save Sun Yi. She tried calling Misuk, but the girl behind her responded. Misuk even pretended to care about Sun Yi, which made Jun feel extremely disgusted. She pushed Misuk away forcefully and took her mother home. Yoon Young advised her mother not to be bullied, but Sun Yi felt unjust. Since childhood, she was always isolated by classmates. Just those girls agreed to play with her. If she lost even these friends, Sun Yi would surely feel like life wasn't worth living. Hearing from her, she realized that her mother's loneliness and depression was not just due to her and her father. It turned out that her mother had shown signs of this since she was a child. Before leaving, Sun Yi begged Jun to forget that today had ever happened. The events that had unfolded left Jun in shock. She told Jun that she couldn't leave just yet. She wanted to beside her mother until she was no longer alone. Jun fell silent, saying nothing as he quietly put the bag he was holding into his pocket and took Jun home. Since the time machine still wasn't repaired, they couldn't return for the time being. That night, Jun was filled with thoughts and emotions. She couldn't believe that Misuk and her mother were classmates and Misuk's debut was related her mother. Remembering the time when her mother was bullied, she felt so angry. She couldn't just sit back any longer. She had to change everything and reclaim what her mother had lost. To easily approach those people, the best way was to become their classmate. Thinking of this, Jun immediately ran to find Hae-jun. She told him that she wanted to go to school too. Upon hearing that, Hae-jun felt shocked and astonished. When he cooked noodles, he couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with the perpetrator. In the Gujong village, there was an incident that led to 2 students' death. As Hae-jun pondered how to blend in with the girls and investigate them, Jun suddenly showed up, insisting that she wanted to go to school. Just at the right moment, as they were talking outside, a doorbell suddenly rang. It was definitely Jong-sik police who wanted to investigate. Earlier, while on patrol, the officer at the nightclub received a report that the girl living at Hae-jun's house was behaving very strangely. The waiter considered Jun as a spy. Coincidentally, during this time, the Ministry of Public Security was cracking down hard on spies. As soon as the door opened, the police officer rushed in and went straight up to Jun. Since Yoon-young did not have her own ID, the officer wanted to arrest her. Seeing that, Hae-jun was in a hurry. He just had to lie that Yoon-young was a student of Huju High School. Hearing Hae-jun say that, Jun seemed incensed and pitiful. Finally Yoon-young could arrive to this school. The next day Hae-jun took Yoon-young to school. When going to school Yoon-young felt so worried. She couldn't remember her fake ID identity. Hae-jun, feeling helpless, pulled Jun to one side and repeatedly emphasized how intervening in the past could lead to disastrous consequences. Yoon-young told Hae-jun that she would not do bad things. Even though she didn't know Hae-jun's purpose for returning to 1987. But Jun ensured that they both aimed at having a better future. Hae-jun thought for a moment and Hae-jun finally compromised. Yoon-young just needed to rehearse a good student and come back school afterwards. After saying that, Hae-jun took Jun to the principal's office to make her enrollment. Coincidentally, the police also took his nephew to enroll. He was Baek Hee-sip, who was Yoon-young's father. While Hae-jun and Jong-sik were completing the enrollment paperwork, Yoon-young and Hee-sip talked together. Yoon-young said that he didn't have a father and right now she was living with her neighbor. And she then shot a sharp glance at Hee-sip. Hee-sip kept saying that he was a worthless jerk. Since his childhood until now, he had never joined programs that he needed to join. All day, he just hung around the bar and got into fights with others. Hee-sip widened his eyes in disbelief, exclaiming how could there be such a terrible father in the world. Yoon-young laughed. They had barely been talking normally when Jun's temper flared, and she was likely to beat others. She pinched Hee-sip's ear hard and warned him through clenched teeth not to go near Sun Ae. At that time, the school was divided into separate male and female sections, so that they were also separated. As soon as Yoon-young entered the classroom, she was struck by Sun E's pure face. In the bustling, noisy environment, only Sun Ae remained silent, holding a novel in her hands. Sun E just read books and she detached herself from others. Now, there was only one empty seat next to Sun Ae, so Jun naturally became her desk mate. Jun E was happy because of Yoon-young's appearance. Now, there was only one empty seat next to Sun Ae, so Jun naturally became her classmate. The ringleader who had pushed Sun Ae into the river that day, along with 2 friends, approached Jun. Just by looking, it was clear that these people were not the good sort. Jun trong long tam ha quiet tom anot din phi day du cho dam nu sin kong beat troi chow dat day nai mot tran. The naughty girl had punished Sun E into the river along with 2 friends came to see Yoon-young. Yoon-young stood up and stared intently at that girl. In reality, it was due to Hee-sip who had taught Yoon-young before there when separating classes. Hee-sip suddenly pulled Jun up to the rooftop to teach her this attack technique. In fact, this was a tactic that Hee-sip had taught Jun before they were separated into different classes. When facing an opponent, you should direct their gaze downward. And taking advantage of that moment, she quickly attacked. Afterwards Yoon-young applied this successfully. Furious, she shouted and prepared to charge at Jun, but Mi-suk coldly intervened, demanding that she stop. Some people were so noisy that interrupted Mi-suk's study, and they were just angry and came back to their seats. And just at the moment, the school bell rang. Mr. Hae-jun, a handsome figure, walked into the classroom. Hae-jun was handsome, kind, and straightforward, seemingly the dream prince of all the female students. Jun was not an exception. Yoon-young heard Sun E counting the numbers. After 5 seconds ended, Hae-jun began his continuous lecture and explaining without pause. Upon teacher saying, Jun talked softly with Yoon-young. Ms. Hae-jun repeated these lines before every class, and everyone was tired of hearing them. Even so, Hae-jun was the super handsome guy in the hearts of all the female students. After finishing the class, she didn't know where her mother went and she looked for her mother. Yoon-young saw when Mi-suk asked Jun to help her revise the album debut. Jun Jun was extremely surprised. It turned out that whether in the past or the future, Mi-suk's novels were always edited by someone else. None of them were written by her directly. Furious, Jun Jun snatched the manuscript Sun Ae had given to Mi-suk. Inside were red marks that were all revised. Jun Jun took Sun Ae's hand, wanting to tell teacher Hei Jun about this situation. Who would have thought that at this moment, Mi-suk suddenly clutched her head and screamed loudly, displaying an extremely painful expression. Jun-e, as if feeling dizzy, immediately pushed Jun Jun's hand away and ran over to comfort Mi-suk. Jun-e even claimed that she was willing to help Mi-suk revise the draft. Not only that, Jun-e even told Yoon-young to interrupt her. Yoon-young was astonished and couldn't say anything. She couldn't understand why Jun-e was so obedient to Mi-suk like that. Having been a loyal tool to Mi-suk for long, Yoon-young knew that Mi-suk just made use of herself. So it would some reasons behind this dilemma. Yoon-young swore that she would investigate and find out the truth to help her mom. The class finally ended, and since Hei Jun promised to take her home, Yoon-young waited for him. Jun-e was too scared to talk to Jun Jun, so she just hugged her backpack tightly, and left the classroom. Mi-suk warned Yoon-young to be careful. If it were a normal girl, she would be frightened. But Yoon-young knew that it was Mi-suk's dirty tricks who always wanted to bully others. Jun Jun chased after Mi-suk and she declared that she was not scared of her. Not only that, but Yoon-young also exposed the deceitful face of this green tea girl. Yoon-young warned that Mi-suk couldn't interrupt Sun-e. Mi-suk laughed and exclaimed that so it was you all along. By the way, Mi-suk's older brother, Min-soo, arrived to pick his sister up after school. But she didn't care his brother and told him that she would take a taxi on her own. Min-soo knew his sister well. Mi-suk's tactics were not that simple, and it rained so heavily and Min-soo took Yoon-young for a short time, and he continued talking about his sister. Min-soo said that what Mi-suk had just said was not a provocation. She wanted to act like that because of finding Yoon-young's weaknesses. If we found out the rival's weakness, everything would be more easier, and it would be under Mi-suk's control. Jun Jun suddenly realized that Mi-suk was playing a psychological tactic. But why Min-soo revealed his sister's secret like that? As soon as Jun Jun asked the question, she felt a strong force coming towards her. Min-soo forcefully slammed Jun Jun's head down onto the edge of the car, causing her to faint on the spot. When Jun Jun was conscious, she found herself in Min-soo's house. At that moment, Min-soo revealed himself, clearly showing his ill intentions towards Jun Jun. Fortunately, Hei Jun burst through the door just in time to give that scoundrel a beating. It turned out that Min-soo was the wrongly accused perpetrator. Although he was not actual perpetrator, his sneaky nature was undeniable. When Hei Jun came to school, he couldn't find Yoon-young in her class. Hei Jun suddenly thought of that man who had been arrested years ago. So Hei Jun rushed quickly to rescue Yoon-young. Hei Jun showed no mercy. After delivering a painful punch to Min-soo, Hei Jun immediately called the police. When they returned home, Hei Jun even helped Yoon-young treat the wound on her forehead. Yoon-young was curious why Hei Jun could know her trouble to rescue. Hei Jun calmly took out the box of matches and gave it to Yoon-young. He wanted to know why he had these ones. Yoon-young replied sincerely. About an hour before being hit by Hei Jun's car, it happened next to the river. It was the place where her mother had jumped in, and she had found it there. Upon hearing that, Hei Jun didn't ask any questions. Unexpectedly, Jun Jun kept pressing Hei Jun about what a packet of matches was that made him so curious. Hei Jun said that these matches were so important to him. It was so his aim for coming back to the past. There were only 3 days left until the first case in Guzhong village would take place. However, because of Jun Jun's appearance, the future would surely change. That year after the incident, the police arrested 3 suspects. They were Hei Seop, Yoon-young's father, Bong Ryung, a friend of Hei Seop, and Min-soo. Hei Seop went to the police station to provide the testimony. And then he stood in front of Min-soo and told him not to do anything. Just doing like that would protect him from danger. The next morning, Hei Jun had to go outside for work. He left a note on the table and asked Yoon-young to return the borrowed items to the neighbor. It made Jun Jun immensely because the neighbor's house was her mother's home. After taking a shower, she rushed to the neighbor's house. To her surprise, she saw all the members of the family, from her grandparents to her uncles and aunts. She smiled shyly. Having a happy family gathered together felt excited. Her grandmother approached and gently stroked Jun Jun's face, not knowing why she had such a fondness for this little girl. She gave a lunchbox she had made into Yoon-young's hands and asked her to take care of her daughter at school. And the mother asked her to visit her house frequently, and it made Yoon-young feel very happy. Hei Jun had gone out early in the morning to look for Bong Ryung. The Baek family had once asked Bong Ryung to send a love letter to Jun Ae. After a while of observing, Bong Ryung met Jun Jun to ask for her help. Just as the two hadn't said much, Bong Ryung was chased away by Hei Jun's sudden appearance. Hee-jun also noticed that Bong Ryung had slipped the love letter into the bag of ice. And these matches looked exactly like the one the perpetrator had used. In fact, for the past few days, Hee-jun had been carefully watching Bong Ryung. He found out that Bong Ryung was hiding an envelope in the bathroom wall. Hee-jun secretly opened it, but found it empty. There was nothing inside. Yoon Young and Jun-e went to school together. Halfway there, Jun-e shyly handed Yoon Young a letter. She wanted to apologize to Yoon Young for what happened the day before. Jun opened the letter. Her mother, indeed, hadn't changed at all. In the past, whenever they argued, her mother never dared to confront her directly. Instead, she used letters to communicate. Yoon Young forgave her mother and they became closer again. On the way, Jun-e kept talking about her favorite novel. At home, Jun-e didn't have much time for reading. Parents also had siblings. With a large family, it was always lively and noisy. Therefore, Jun-e's dream was simply to have a day where she could read freely and listen to music without being disturbed by others. Jun felt both embarrassed and moved. She wanted to make it up to her mother. She wanted to return everything her mother had given up back to her. Today was the school picnic day, where boys and girls from the final classes could finally meet. Everyone was very excited. On the way, Baek Hee-seop enthusiastically started a conversation with Jun-e. Seeing this, Jun hurried over. However, she didn't exercise much, so her stamina was poor. She ran out of breath before finally catching up to the two of them. Hee-seop seized the opportunity, saying that if they arrived late, they would be punished, and took Jun-e's hand to walk ahead. Jun, feeling helpless, could only lie on the ground, panting heavily. Hee-jun noticed that she was out of shape, but she insisted that she had just stopped to admire the sky. After all the students gathered, it was time for some leisure activities. Because she heard that Jun-e really liked boys who could sing well, and Hee-seop took this chance to perform a song. He wanted to use this natural talent to flirt her girl that he liked. The performance made everyone feel excited, including Jun-e. Yoon Young didn't expect her drunk father also had a natural talent for singing like this. While everyone was cheering for Hee-seop, Hae-jun focused somewhere else. The principal and another girl gradually approached. This woman was Lee Ju-young, who tended to start her internship and would become the first victim of incident. Yoon Young gazed tightly at her. She had a feeling that she had met this person before. At the lunchtime, while Yoon Young and Jun-e were happily eating lunch, a boy suddenly came over and handed them a packet of matches. Jun-e skillfully opened the packet of matches and took out a small piece. Yoon Young turned around and noticed that every girl would have a packet of matches like that. The bag of ice in their hands looked exactly like the one Jun Young had found by the river many years later. Inside the bag of ice, there was also a piece of paper. Jun Young couldn't help but think of Hee-jun. Hee-jun had once said that this bag of ice was very important to him. This indicated that Hee-jun knew something. At that moment, Hee-jun walked over, and they stared at each other for a long time until they were interrupted by Mi-suk's distant scream. They saw Teacher Lee running over to comfort Mi-suk. After lunch, Hee-jun went directly to Ms. Lee to ask her a few related questions. Teacher Lee said that she had relatives in Gudong village, which was why she chose to intern here. But Hee-jun knew that she was telling lies. She of course didn't have any relatives. What was Teacher Lee's true purpose in lying like that? After the picnic ended, the students descended the mountain one by one. Jun-e accidentally forgot her water bottle, so she returned to get it. While waiting, Yoon Young ran into Mi-suk. Mi-suk confronted Jun and asked if she was the one who caused her brother to end up in the police station. Jun coldly replied that it was Min-soo's despicable actions that had harmed her, making her the real victim. Therefore, putting Min-soo in jail was only natural. After saying that, Jun turned the question back to Mi-suk. Yoon Young wanted to know if Mi-suk was finding her weaknesses. Mi-suk, with an expressionless face, calmly replied that there was no need to look far when Jun had already clearly revealed everything. Jun's weakness was Jun-e. Mi-suk knew that Jun was on guard against her. Whether Mi-suk would use Jun-e to take revenge on Jun depended on whether she was angry about her brother being sent to jail. Jun could take her time to figure this out. That evening, when Jun returned home, she couldn't stop thinking. Just only one day left, the massacre would take place. Jun was unsure whether she should tell Jun-e about this. At that moment, the phone rang. The principal announced that they couldn't get in touch with Ms. Lee. Hee-jun hurriedly ran outside to find, and just when he was worried, he received news that Min-soo had been released. Hee-jun felt like he was sitting on a pile of fire. While running down the street, he accidentally ran into Jun. Feeling confused, Jun asked if Ms. Lee was in any danger. It turned out that Jun had remembered why Ms. Lee looked so familiar to her. Because Ms. Lee's style of dress was exactly like the character described in Mi-suk's draft. And that novel was a diary recounting the protagonist's process of killing others from the author's perspective. Upon hearing from Yoon Young, Hae Jun was standing quietly for 5 seconds. Why did Yoon Young know that Ms. Lee was about to be killed? She slowly took the draft from her hand. The unsolved case from many years ago turned out to be the inspiration for a famous novel. Based on the fragments of memory, Yoon Young took Hae Jun to the riverbank. There they saw Ms. Lee curled up in a corner and trembling. It seemed that Teacher Lee was very frightened. Hae Jun spotted a strange shadow lurking behind the grass not far away. He immediately sprinted after it. Just as Hae Jun was about to catch him, he was accidentally blocked by a passing vehicle. In the blink of an eye, the perpetrator disappeared. Hae Jun, furious, grabbed the collar of the driver and demanded answers. Rong Sik had released Min-soo early, and now he was also hindering Hae Jun from catching the perpetrator. Regardless of whether it was accidental or intentional, Hae Jun openly expressed his disdain for Rong Sik. Hae Jun coldly criticized Rong Sik as an irresponsible detective. They had better not meet again. Hae Jun didn't want to deal with any more trouble because of Rong Sik. After saying that, Hae Jun returned to the riverbank. At that moment, Ms. Lee had regained her composure. Facing Jun's curiosity, Ms. Lee only said that she was lost and that no one was persecuting her at all. Although Hae Jun and Jun both knew that Ms. Lee was lying, she still refused to tell the truth. They felt completely helpless and constrained. Hae Jun then decided to adopt a clever strategy, leaving Lee Jun there and departing on his own. After that, they quietly and secretly followed her. They saw that Jun safely returned to her dormitory without any unusual incidents occurring along the way. Hae Jun suddenly turned his head and stared tightly at Jun. It was the time for them to be honest and tell the truth. Both of them went to a tea room, specifically the Bong Bong tea room noted on the matchbox. They chose a quiet little corner and sat down. Hae Jun said to her first. He introduced himself as a journalist. He returned to this place to investigate the serial murder case in Gujong village from 1987. 2 days later marked the first incident. 4 days later would mark the second incident. Before Hae Jun could finish, Jun quickly interjected. Then came the case of the missing woman. The police speculated that she had run away based on the note from a victim. But in reality, that woman had also disappeared without a trace. Hae Jun was taken aback by one surprise after another, because everything Yoon Young was saying was information he had never heard before. Why did Yoon Young know this? And Jun took out the manuscript and said that it included the entire content. He couldn't believe that it was actually happening in real life. Jun suddenly remembered an important detail that Hae Jun needed to pay attention to. She asked him to turn to the next page. Mi-suk had written that the killer would never be caught because that person was me. Hae Jun suddenly recalled after being arrested Min-soo would deny. However, just based on the content of the novel, they couldn't definitively conclude that Mi-suk was the killer. After all, a novel was just a work of fiction. But Yoon Young didn't think so. If Mi-suk really wasn't the killer, why would she know the details of the case so well? Seeing Jun so agitated, Hae Jun felt a strong wave of anger rising within him. Jun looked at Hae Jun with a determined gaze. Based on what Jun knew about Mi-suk, she ensured that Mi-suk could commit heinous acts. Just as Hae Jun was about to ask more, a clear voice from the next table suddenly spoke up. It turned out that Hee Sip kept asking Sun Ae out and planned to propose her. Jun didn't say much. She immediately warned him and beat him without holding back. At that moment, Sun Ae took a flower out of her backpack and handed it back to Hee Sip. She straightforwardly rejected his love confession. Sun Ae said that she already had someone she liked, and that person was waiting for her downstairs. Jun and Hee Sip quickly leaned over to look downstairs. To their surprise, it was Bong Ryung waiting there. They were both shocked. This action made Hae Jun realize something important. After Sun Ae left, Hae Jun immediately pulled Jun to a corner to ask her about everything. Yoon Young shyly explained that Hee Seo Op and Sun Ae were actually her parents. The reason she interfered with their relationship was that she didn't want them to get married. Because in the future, even if she married and had children, it would still bring Sun Ae an endless loneliness. It was also due to the loneliness, her mother wanted to kill herself. Jun found that matchbox next to where her mother had ended her own life. Just a short evening, Hae Jun received so much significant information. After returning home, Hae Jun immediately went into his room and sat down, deep in thought. Hae Jun looked 3 suspects, his gaze lingering on the photo of Hee Sip. The next morning, Hae Jun took Jun to the shores of remote lake. Hae Jun informed Jun that the first incident would occur the next day. Inside the matchbox found next to the body, there was a piece of paper with the message, "A woman reading a book is very dangerous." The next incident included the similar matchbox and a piece of paper appeared as well. Hae Jun believed that this was the killer's signature. But why did this item strangely appear next to the place where Jun's mother took her own life? Hae Jun suspected that on the day Jun died, she had encountered the real killer there. And the only person to help her mom was Yoon Young. Today saw the exam results as announcement. The leader was of course Jun-E. Both she and Yoon Young were very happy, and at the moment, 3 of the bullies received Misuk signals. Afterwards they began to interrupt Jun-E. Yoon Young stood in front of Jun-E without fear. She stood up and tore the score sheet. The security manager came in time before they began to beat each other. On the boys' classroom side, it also had test results. It just only had one result. The last one was Bong Ryung. Hee-seop felt confused and stared at him. He didn't know why Jun-E liked him. Although Bong Ryung studied hard every day, he ranked the last. At that moment, Bong Ryung's gaze turned far away where the teacher was stepping out of the classroom. He stared at the teacher and scratched his head awkwardly. Although Yoon Young hated Misuk, she was finally persuaded by Hae-jun. Misuk could not be finally the suspect of the incident. The perpetrator could be the man who hid behind the river that night. Hae-jun had reached to that conclusion based on the previous process. Before her death, teacher had visited the Bongbong tea room to meet a man wearing a green hat. On the way come back home, she was killed by a man. And the man that Hae-jun chased after that day also wear a green hat. Hae-jun decided to follow Lee Ju-young the next day. Hae-jun wanted to witness the crime being committed. However, before the incident, everything had changed, and the man who had interrupted this incident was police Baek Jong-sik. From his colleague Jong-sik, he knew that Lee Ju-young had a total of 3 prior convictions, and the next morning, the police went to the school and wanted to arrest. Witnessing it, Lee Ju-young rushed to escape as quickly as possible. He ran quickly to bus station at the edge of the village to buy a ticket for nearest bus. Jun Young wanted to chase after her and advise her not to leave there, but she misunderstood that it was Yoon Young and Hae-jun who had reported her, and afterwards Ms. Lee had grabbed the weapon to threat Yoon Young. Coming closer to the danger, Hae-jun came to rescue Yoon Young. At the same time, she successfully prevented Lee Ju-young and hid her in the ticket booth. Until night, Hae-jun came to the tea room to wait for the man wearing a green hat, and a moment later a man wearing a green gat walked in and it was Hee-seop. The moment Hae-jun saw Hee-seop, he felt extremely complicated. If the man in green hat was actually the murder of serial killings, it also meant that Hee-seop was the person who killed his wife. Not only that, Hee-seop also ended Hae-jun's his own life. Thinking of this, Hae-jun realized that he had to calm himself down. First of all, let everything tonight happen according to the plan. According to Lee Ju-young, she just came here to read books and drink tea that night. She didn't invite someone else, but there was a man in green hat standing in front of her, and they got into an argument and the cafe owner had witnessed the entire incident. Just as Hae-jun was analyzing, a shadow appeared. Bong Ryung took the seat that was supposed to belong to Lee Ju-young. As soon as he sat down, Bong Ryung eager began to tell a story. It turned out that Lee Ju-young was a communist, opposing the government that time. Ju-young had been imprisoned for many times, but Hee-seop didn't care. He just calmly took out a wooden ring and put it on the table. It was the ring that Lee Ju-young always wanted to wear it. It turned out that Hee-seop discovered the Boryung's secret. Bong Ryung always wanted to hide in the restroom with his own purpose. Curious, Hee-seop stepped in to check and found out the ring hidden behind a brick in the wall. Hee-seop seriously warned Bong Ryung to stop doing silly things. If Jun-e found out this, she would be definitely hurtful. And his expressions on his face changed afterwards. Finally Bong Ryung persuaded Hee-seop to keep this secret for himself. Bong Ryung would turn the wooden ring back to Ms. Lee and apologize to her. Hee-seop chose to have a faith in Bong Ryung. He handed the ring to Bong Ryung and came back home with his brother. Bong Ryung turned to other paths and Hae-jun left home to chase after him. But strangely, the path that he went was the same path that Ms. Lee came back home. Bong Ryu walked into the Ms. Lee's store. When Hae-jun intended to chase after, there was suddenly a familiar voice. It turned out Misun's voice. At that time, Minsu crazily beat her younger sister. Hae-jun came and hit him. After solving the problems with them, Hae-jun rushed to the inn. And he happened to see Bong Ryung stepping out from the door. Hee-seop just arrived. They began to stare each other. They were so surprised since their strange appearance. Hae-jun began to become more confused. Couldn't expect that 3 suspects in the case were also near the inn. And of course, Hae-jun couldn't get the results that he wanted. And he then came back home with the Yoon Young's curiosity. Hae-jun just replied that he didn't see any man who wore a green hat. Yoon Young was so doubtful. Hae-jun had left home for 3 hours. Why he took a lot time without evidence? Before she could ask anything more, there was a knock outside. Hae-jun opened the door and he saw Jun-e with worried expressions. Jun-e heard as her father recounted how Jun Young had been threatened with a knife by Ms. Lee today. Jun-e was so worried that she wanted to invite Jun Young to sleep with her. Hae-jun immediately agreed before her invitation and asked Jun Young to come to her mother's house. Hae-jun wanted Yoon Young to have more time with her mom. Although Yoon Young felt hesitant, she was so happy. Jun Young happily came to Jun E's room. The room was filled with youthful feminity's essence, and there were so many posters related to famous male idols on the wall. On the table had a bookshelf. There also had a light reflected everywhere, and that made a truly pleasant atmosphere. Jun E cuddled up next to Jun Young, but they both lay there for a long time unable to sleep. Duong nu Jun E dang ko tom su ko noi. Thay vei Jun Young Hyat tin hoi han Jun E. Jun E seemed to have something on her mind. Noticing this, Jun Young eagerly asked her what was wrong. That day in the tea room, He Sip showed his inner feelings to Sun E. Although they had not been accustomed to each other for a long time, but he knew that Sun E was his own destiny at the first sight. When she was indulged in her own world, it created her specialty. And at that moment, Jun E was so attractive. Hearing what He Sip said, Jun E began to be vibrated. Jun Young quietly listened to her, and she remembered Misuk's the first album. Among them were some attractive words that echoed exactly what He Sip had once said. Jun Young also liked it, and she specially wrote them into the notebook. Due to these charming words, Jun Young became a fan of Misuk. Who would have guessed that the youthful emotions and romantic feelings in Jun Young's memories would end in endless arguments and a separate family? After Jun Young left, He Young continued to think about the matter concerning him, and ran into He Sip and Bong Ryong in front of the inn. He Jun asked them the reason why they were here. Bong Ryong replied that she wanted to turn the wooden ring back to the teacher Lee. He Sip reluctantly said that she wanted to go for a walk. He Young of course didn't believe, but didn't find out the reason for that. The next day, He Young and Lee Ju Young came back the inn to pack their belongings. Afterwards, Jun E's father would drive him out of the village by bus. At that moment, several fire trucks rushed by, heading straight towards the old house by the rose tree. It turned out that the house by the rose tree was on fire. Perhaps it was due to the history. In his memory, the house was burned down, but no one was injured. But now he had tried himself to rescue children struck in this house. But luckily everyone was protected. Witnessing this incident, He Young's feelings changed. If he changed history, if he saved someone who was meant to meet the Grim Reaper, then someone else would have to lose their life. Thinking of this, He Young felt a bit anxious and afraid. He came back home. Jun Young ead me Suk's novel countless times. She wanted to find some clues about the Green Hat. Although there was nothing about the Green Hat, Jun Young discovered the green-haired man's appearance. Jun Young found out they were the same one. But He Jun didn't react, and Jun Young finally understood what it was. From that night, He Jun's mood had changed a lot. It turned out that He Jun knew who the green-haired man was but didn't to let her know. Confronting with Jun Young's questions, He Jun was confused and couldn't control his own feelings. He Jun directly admitted that he was the fifth victim of the incident. He Young wanted to rescue his own life, but Jun Young's appearance had changed a lot. Her appearance had interrupted and changed everything. Jun Young felt confused, and she didn't know the reason why she had ruined everything. He Young didn't repelled, and she angrily wanted to find out the man wearing a green hat. Coming back to school, Jun Young started to do research from the first album debut and asked her mother, Jun E. Jun Ae said that everything was not clear and just the writer could find out what it meant. Since everyone would bring their own logic into every word that they wrote. Finding any way for it, Jun Young came to ask Misuk, how could we interpret the sentence of a man standing between the sun and the moon? Misuk said that weren't the sun and the moon the names of recording store in the town. Jun Young hurriedly rushed to that place. And of course, she ran into a man who wore green hat. And he was Baekru Seo Op, He Seo Op's brother. That night, Jun Young told this with He Jun. He Jun remembered the day they met at the He Seo tea room, when he had left with his brother. If the green hat was Baekru Seo Op, everything could explain. He Jun realized that he had investigated in the wrong way. Perhaps Baekru Seo was the right suspect. In Jun Young's memory, he was the man who suffered from memory disorders. Many times, her uncle came to her room and tore the Misuk's novels, which made Jun Young angry. However, her father was very biased, because they lived in the same house. Finding no evidence, He Jun went directly to meet Si Heap to confirm. With He Jun's continuous curiosity, He Seo Op finally admitted that it was his brother's. On the night He Jun came to the tea room to change a cup, it was Ru Young, also known as Ru Seo Op, who asked He Seo Op to bring that colored hat to the inn. Ru Seo Op wanted to know whether the light on the second floor was still on or not. At that moment, every evidence was towards Ru Seo. Jun Young also though that the perpetrator for these incident were her uncle. He Jun advised her not to guess without evidence. Tomorrow the suspect would kill the second victim, and by then everything would be clear. The second victim of course was Kyung E, Sun E's older sister. He Jun rented a new house opposite the house in order to arrest the perpetrator. At 9 p.m. tonight, Kyung E would appear at the tea room and he was killed by the perpetrator. To prevent the incident happening earlier in the morning, they started paying attention to Kyung E. They quietly followed and witnessed the argument between Ki Young-e and Jun-e. It turned out that Ki Young-e wanted to ask for her mom's money. Ki Young-e wanted to collect a not money 500,000 won to pay the broker. She wanted to become Korea model. Her mother said that she didn't have enough money, and at that moment, Sun-e chipped in. Sun-e wanted a little more money and her money that she collected to look for a tutor. And of course, Sun-e's requirement was rejected by her mother. However, just as Sun-e stepped out the door, her mother secretly slipped some extra spending money to her beloved son. Ki Young-e felt that Sun-e wanted to mock her at the dining table earlier. Why did her parents invest money for Jun-e instead of Ki Young-e? And the funniest thing was that Sun-e didn't know that her father didn't want her to attend university. Instead, he wanted to let her tie the knot soon. He focused all his hopes on his beloved son. Sun-e didn't want to follow the path her father had laid out for her. Even without the money to hire a tutor, Sun-e was determined to get into university. To prove her abilities, Sun-e used all the money she had set aside to hire a tutor for Ki Young-e. To pursue her dream of becoming Miss Korea. A series of Sun-e's actions made Ki Young-e feel guilty inside. Jun-young and Hae-jun accidentally heard their conversation. Seeing Sun-e sitting alone and sad by the river, Jun-young felt sympathetic. But for the sake of capturing the culprit, Jun-young couldn't come to comfort Sun-e. Jun-young along with Hae-jun continued to follow Ki Young-e. At that moment, Ki Young-e was in a phone booth making a call. A moment later, a car stopped in front of Ki Young-e. A man dressed like a thug got out of the car. Ki Young-e took 500,000 won that she collected for long to give him. He cheerfully promised that he would help her become Miss Korea. At that moment, Ki Young-e suddenly thought about how her sister could use that money to attend university. Ki Young-e's kindness appeared, and she immediately changed her mind, wanting to get the money back. But he didn't let money go out of his bag. Unexpectedly, Ki Young-e jumped up and charged at the car, ready to confront them. To save Aunt Jun, Jun ignored Hae-jun's attempts to stop her and rushed over to deliver a powerful kick to the guy. They came and beat each other. Baek Ju-seop suddenly appeared and swiftly dealt with the scumbag who was about to attack Hae-jun. In the end, with the help of the surrounding villagers, the fraudsters were apprehended. Hae-jun looked at the young man in front of him, wondering why Ju-seop had appeared here. But before Hae-jun could think further, the police arrived, taking all the fraudsters away. After everything was solved, they realized that both Ju-seop and Ki Young-e had disappeared. At that moment, they were in a state of panic. Hae-jun decided to take action according to the plan. Since last night, Hae-jun had anticipated this situation. If Ki Young-e suddenly disappeared along the way, Jun-young would go to the place where Ju-seop might appear. Meanwhile, Hae-jun would head to the most dangerous place, which was the scene of the massacre. Hae-jun did this because he had been to the scene where he would meet his fate in the future. Thinking about how he could be harmed in such a bewildering way just for accidentally encountering a scumbag. At that time, Hae-jun's body was thrown into the icy river. How could one not feel heartbroken? Thinking about the victims who shared similar experiences, Hae-jun felt a deep sense of empathy. Hae-jun wanted to save the innocent people. That's why they split up to take action. The two people searched every nook and cranny where the perpetrator might appear. It wasn't until night fell that there were still no results. However, this also proved that the incident had not yet occurred. Jun suddenly remembered that they had focused too much on places where the perpetrator might appear but had overlooked the most important location. That was the bubble tea shop. So they hurried to the bubble tea shop. Sure enough, they found Ki Young-e happily singing here. What was even more surprising was that Min-soo was also among the crowd. Min-soo had been sentenced to over 30 years in prison as the actual perpetrator but had always denied all charges. Based on Hae-jun's reasoning, one of the two was definitely lying. While waiting, Jun happened to see Bong Ryung and Jun-e strolling down the street. Jun suddenly remembered that Bong Ryung was the suspect of the incident. She was worried that Jun-e would be in danger, so she immediately stood up and chased after them. Bong Ryung took Jun-e to an inn. There, Jun-e said goodbye. Bong Ryung happily agreed, but first, he had to get what he wanted. Just at that moment, Jun appeared in front of them. She dealt a painful blow to Bong Ryung's head. Feeling angry, he took them down. Luckily, Hee Seo-op appeared just in time to pin Bong Ryung against the wall. The relationship between them came to an end from this point onward. At the same time, Ki Young-e's group of friends dispersed, each heading home. Min-soo unexpectedly followed Ki Young-e. Min-soo followed Ki Young-e to a bridge and enthusiastically invited her to go somewhere else for drink. Ki Young-e absolutely refused. Everyone in the village knew about Min-soo's notorious reputation. Ki Young-e didn't want to make friends with someone as worthless as Min-soo. Min-soo, provoked, lost control and directly approached to grab Ki Young-e tightly. Ki Young-e fought back and kicked his leg fiercely. No one could have imagined that Min-soo, losing his balance, suddenly fell off the bridge. Hae-jun went down to check and confirmed that Min-soo was only lightly injured and not in danger of losing his life. Hae-jun ignored Min-soo and took Kyung-yi safely back home first. He gently comforted Kyung-yi. Although she couldn't become Miss Korea, her singing and dancing skills were still quite impressive and remarkable. Moreover, Kyung-yi had a fashionable style. Hearing the compliments coming from Hae-jun, Kyung-yi immediately felt more confident and excited. Hae-jun took out the money from the stealers and returned it to Kyung-yi. Afterwards Kyung-yi took this money to Jun-yi. They cried and hugged each other. That night it rained cats and dogs. Hae-jun and Jun-young still observed them from the window of the house across the street. Kyung-yi happily styled her sister's hair herself. It was the first time they have gotten along with each other. Yoon-young thanked Hae-jun for her family. But tonight they couldn't catch the perpetrator. The phone suddenly rang. Hae-jun went upstairs to answer the phone. Bong Ryung's trembling voice came through on the phone line. She was dead. On this side, Lee Ju-young was dead lying on the rocky riverbank. Her hands were tightly bound with a red rope. Hae-jun and Jun-young hurried quickly to the incident. Hae-jun stood and stared tightly at Lee Ju-young's corpse. Jun-young immediately checked the Ms. Lee's belongings. She found out a packet of matches from the bubble tea shop. Inside was a piece of paper including the woman reading book is very dangerous. Hae-jun kept calm. He grabbed Bong Ryung's collar. It was clear that Hae-jun had deemed Bong Ryung as the perpetrator. Bom Ryung hurriedly denied. As he spoke, he took out Lee Ju-young's ring. This ring had been given to him by teacher Lee herself the afternoon before. At that time, they talked each other. But he didn't expect that Ms. Lee had been murdered. Hae-jun suddenly realized that Ju-young had never left the town. The reason Bong Ryung was so frightened was that Lee Ju-young was a communist being hunted by the government. They had seen each other twice but Bong Ryung did not report. Bong Ryung was afraid of being implicated once the police found out. This night would be a sleepless night. In Gu-rong village, 2 incidents occurred simultaneously. And the second victim was Kyung-yi. The essence of Kyung-yi was just like Ju-young. Kyung-yi had her hands tightly bound with a red rope by the perpetrator. There was a packet of matches in Kyung-yi's bag in the bubble tea room. After witnessing the scene, Hae-young immediately pulled Jun-young home and locked the door tightly. At that moment, Hae-young's heart was racing with turmoil. Hae-young felt painful as if she had been dealt a fatal blow to her chest. Hae-young believed that they should come back to the real life. No matter what they tried, the outcome would not change. Hae-young decided to speed up the repairs on the time machine. He locked himself in the room and thought about what had happened. Jun-young sat down on the steps, feeling disappointed. By the way, Sunny knocked the door. Sunny was heartbroken and needed comfort from Yoon-young. They cried and hugged each other. Kyung-yi's death made the atmosphere terrible and suffocating. Sunny's mother worked tirelessly around the house, constantly mumbling to herself. While working, she accidentally grazed her wrist with a shard of pottery. Jun-young couldn't bear witnessing her family like this. Worried about her grandmother's condition, she knocked on the door and asked if Hae-jun remembered when her grandmother passed away. What Jun-young knew was that her grandfather passed away before she was born. Was it related to the Kyung-yi's sudden death? She cried pitifully outside the door. She didn't want everything end like that. Kyung-yi was gone but Jun-young had to rescue her grandmother. The woman sat dazed in the living room, watching the news about her daughter's massacre on TV, and she changed the channel to Miss Korea channel. Happy moments as Kyung-yi with her family was always in her mind. Although Kyung-yi didn't work hard and wanted to become a model, she was an obedient daughter. Kyung-yi always talked gossip and promised to buy her mother a jacket if she collected enough money. She deeply regretted not hugging her daughter more often. She stood up disappointedly, and when Jun-yi came back home, she couldn't find her mom. The family, worried she wasn't thinking clearly, hurried outside to find, and Jun-yi heard her name being called. Before Jun-young could catch up, Jun-yi reacted and rushed out of the room, running straight to somewhere. The woman stood on the cliff, tended to jump off. Luckily, Hae-jun came in time to prevent her and persuaded her to face up to the truth. No matter what she wanted to do, she should think of her 2 remaining children. Even if she wanted to leave in pain now, she should think of her 2 remaining children. Thinking of her children, she finally gave up her intentions. Her family burst into tears and Hae-jun sighed in relief. Jun-young was very grateful for Hae-jun's actions and didn't know how to thank him. Hae-jun knew what Jun-young thought and they hugged each other. Recently there had been too many unpleasant events and they did this to comfort each other. Before Hae-jun's sayings, Jun-young rushed forward and hugged him tightly. Hae-jun came to comfort her. After a while, Hae-jun decided to prevent the perpetrator killing the 3rd victim. Hae-jun also didn't want to end the cooperation relationship with Yoon-young. He didn't want them to be strangers. While Jun-young was mumbling, Hae-jun picked up the Rubik's Cube and turned it a few times. They started to gather their evidence. They started to think about their circumstances. Tae Min-soo was currently injured and she couldn't tie up. So Min-soo was not one of the suspects. The next person was Bong Ryung. The reason made Bong Ryong worried was that the police would arrest him due to not reporting to be communist, so they could eliminate these two suspects. The remaining person was Baek Hee-seop, Jun's father. By the way, Jun reminded Min-suk. He considered her as a suspect. Since Min-suk was happy when his brother was sentenced, why did Min-suk know every incident and write it into a novel album? Jun looked at the clock. Just half an hour, Baek Hee would be arrested by the police as the primary suspect. They afterwards went to Hee-seop to look for evidence. Hee-seop instinctively stood in front of a cabinet. Jun immediately found something strange. After checking the cabinet, he found a piece of fabric filled with blood and Hee-seop felt panic. Hee-seop recalled the appointment with Min-suk 2 hours before. Min-suk wanted to cooperate with Hee-seop. Min-suk took a green hat out of the bag. This green hat was put into the basket. Min-suk accidentally saw it. She straightforwardly showed that Hee-seop was trying to protect someone, while she wanted to escape from someone. They could collaborate to help each other. Min-suk mentioned Ju-seop, causing Hee-seop to panic and obediently move closer to hear Min-suk's plan. In the end, Hee-seop admitted that the item was his. He confessed that everything was due to him. Junyoung was stunned for several seconds. Did she really travel back in time just to hear her father confess his crimes? Junyoung truly didn't understand why everything had changed like this. At that moment, Hee-seop suddenly experienced a hallucination. Hee-seop heard a woman's voice echoing in his ear. Sensing that something was wrong, Jun hurried over to calm Hee-seop's nerves. Jun urged Hee-seop to think carefully, as this matter was related to his family's future. If he lied just to protect someone, the consequences could be unpredictable. Surprisingly, Hee-seop didn't change. Since Hee-seop confirmed his doings, Junyoung felt disappointed in despair. Junyoung wanted Hee-seop to face appropriate legal consequences. Just as she was about to leave, the door suddenly swung open. Of course, Zong-sik had overheard their entire conversation. As Hee-seop's uncle and a police officer, Zong-sik could only carry out his duty and escort Hee-seop to the station. On the way home, Junyoung sat helplessly and cried. She kept saying sorry, as if confessing to the unfortunate victims. Everything was caused by her father. Hee-seop couldn't hold back. He was certain that he was not the perpetrator. Indeed, Hee-seop's judgment was never wrong. Hee-seop admitted his fault without knowing the truth. Only when Zong-sik mentioned Hee-seop did he realize the blood-stained shirt was linked to the massacre. Hee-seop was shocked and widened his eyes in disbelief. The first time Bitch Zong-sik saw the piece of paper in the matchbox, he suspected Hee-seop was the culprit, because Zong-sik had seen the room of Hee-seop filled with matchboxes from the bubble tea room. Upon hearing, Hee-seop denied the fault that he had said before. However, Hee-seop still couldn't explain the blood-stained shirt. Therefore, he was temporarily taken to the station for questioning. While Jun was talking to Jun-rung outside the door, he saw her grandfather rush out onto the street without control. He shouted continuously that he wanted to take the life of the culprit. Just then, Sun Ae appeared to testify for Hee-seop. Last night, Hee-seop was with Sun Ae. When Sun Ae was forced into the main hotel by Bong Ryong, it was Hee-seop who rescued her. Worried, Hee-seop visited Sun Ae's house again in the middle of the night. At that time, Kyung Ae was getting ready to go out. They stood outside the gate, exchanged a few words, and then both went up to the balcony. Hee-seop wanted to wait for Kyung Ae to return before leaving, but after waiting all night, she still hadn't come back. With this simple saying, Sun Ae could prove that Hee-seop was definitely not the culprit. Sun Ae's father was serious and he warned his daughter not to tell anyone about it. After Kyung Ae's death, the village was filled with negative rumors about her. They all said that Kyung Ae, having drunk too much, went to an abandoned house to meet a stranger. Before leaving, Sun Ae shared shocking information with Hee-seop. On the night of the incident, Kyung Ae had a meeting with someone. Kyung Ae said that it was her benefactor who saved her life that morning. Upon hearing this, Sun Ae and Hee-seop hurried to find Baek Ju-seop. From their neighbor, they knew that Baek Ju-seop was studying at Seoul National University in the Korean Literature Department. Not only that, Lee Ju-young was a former student of Seoul University. She also studied Literature Department. They both attended the same department at the same university. Jun saw the lock-shaped necklace found in the incident. It was the same as Hee-seop's necklace. Bok Zong-sik also knew it as Ju-seop's necklace. Hee-seop denied it again, insisting that this was his own necklace. Jun-young saw the necklace and confirmed it was second uncle's. Until now, he still did not allow anyone to touch it. Jun suddenly recalled what had happened that year. When the blood-stained shirt was brought to the forensic department, a collision occurred because the driver was both drinking coffee and driving. As a result, the coffee cup spilled all over the shirt. At that time, technology was not advanced, and the evidence was lost. The police were unable to extract any additional useful clues. This time, before leaving, Hee-jun decided to knock on the police car's door and pour out the officer's cup of coffee. Afterwards Hee-jun brought the police a bag. After witnessing the shirt being placed in the evidence bag, Hee-jun finally felt relieved. News of Hee-seop's arrest quickly spread throughout the school. Misuk overheard everyone mumbling and scolding himself as a fool. It was due to himself who made everything complicated. At the same time, both Junyoung and Sun Ae were suspended. Sun Ae was locked at home by his father in order not to be Seop's witness. Sun Ae knocked the door and shouted. Feeling depressed, she risked it all and jumped through the window to escape. Junyoung was already guarding the door to prevent Sun Ae from escaping. Junyoung believed that Hee-seop was confessing to protect real criminal. Hee-seop must face the consequences. Sun Ae cried and pleaded with Junyoung. Sun Ae recalled the night they were together on the rooftop. At that time Hee-seop had confessed his feelings for her, but this love made Hee-seop worried. When he was young, he was afraid of losing the people around him. From his parents and his brother, they always left him. Now, Hee-seop was also very afraid of losing someone he cared about once again. Hearing Sun Ae calmly and gently comfort him deeply moved Hee-seop. He couldn't control himself and kissed her. Upon hearing from her mother, she was not moved. Until her grandfather appeared and took Sun Ae away. Junyoung recalled the time when her mother was taken to the hospital. Her father was busy taking care of her second uncle and she didn't see his father. His father didn't care her and her mother. She felt depressed and sat at the bus stop wait for Hye-young. This time, Hee-young went to Seoul to inquire about the whereabouts of Baek Ju-seop, but most of them didn't tell anything because of being afraid something. Just someone revealed him. At the same time, the police station received the analysis report. The blood on the shirt was type A, and the two victims in this incident were not type A. Hee-seop had blood type O, so he was also excluded from being a suspect. When the police were confused and unsure of everything. But the security department arrived. They didn't say anything and suddenly took Hyup away. The security bureau department wanted Hee-seop to reveal the whereabouts of Baek Ju-seop. Hae-jun and Junyoung, standing not far away, witnessed the whole scene. Hae-jun instructed Junyoung to keep waiting for him, then sprinted to chase after the car. Junyoung kept feeling worried. She immediately tried to recall memories of her father and second uncle. Suddenly, Junyoung recalled a time when she carried her father's luggage to her second uncle's house. They scolded himself for not carrying her and her mother completely. Junyoung immediately guessed Ju-seop's hiding place. Of course Baek Ju-seop was injured and hid there. Baek Ju-seop was worried when knowing that his younger brother took the blame for him. Although the blood-stained shirt belonged to Ju-seop, he did not commit the murder. Baek Ju-seop, enduring the pain, pleaded with Junyoung to take him to see his brother. Unexpectedly, as they stepped out the door, they ran into Hae-jun. The three of them approached the boarding house. Fearing danger, Hae-jun and Ju-seop went upstairs to rescue the others while Junyoung stayed below to wait. Inside the boarding house, Hee-seop was being tortured to the brink of death, yet he gritted his teeth and said nothing. Seeing Hee-seop's stubbornness, the group seized him by the head and pressed down. In his dazed state, Hee-seop felt as though he was falling into a memory. A few days earlier, Hee-seop found Ju-seop, injured, lying outside the door. Hee-seop guessed that his brother must participate in a protest. Seeing Ju-seop continuously apologize to Hee-seop, Jun became furious. Hee-seop directly pulled the keychain from around his neck and questioned his brother. Could it be that Ju-seop had forgotten all the warnings from their parents? 7 years ago, Heo-seop's parents knew that their eldest brother participated in a protest near the school. It seemed that he had been shot. Their parents quickly locked the two brothers, Hee-seop and Ju-seop, inside the house. Before leaving, they carefully advised them that if anything happened to their parents, they must take care of themselves and live well. Upon saying that their parents left, unexpectedly, the next moment, gunfire erupted outside. Their parents were brutally murdered. Before leaving, their mother was tightly holding the key to the children's room. Ju-seop didn't want to let her mother end her own life like that. The fire of hatred flickered relentlessly in their hearts. So, Ju-seop promised to his parents and continued to participate in the protest march. Hee-seop woke up. Their mother's sayings reminding them to take good care of each other echoed in their ears. Hee-seop burst into tears. Junyoung waited a long time on the floor. Seeing their father, covered in blood and limping out of the house step by step, blended the memories of him with the harsh reality. Junyoung cried out in pain. Finally she knew his father's secret that he kept all the time. Junyoung quickly ran over to help Hee-seop with wounds. He was choked with emotions. Hee-seop didn't understand what mistakes he made to encounter this tragic events. After saying that, he cried in despair. In the darkest moment of their father's life, his daughter took a long time to appear. Not only that, but she also didn't know how to respond to these heart-wrenching questions. Junyoung took care of Hee-seop carefully. They anxiously waited at the inn for Ju-seop and Hae-jun to come back. Thanks to Ju-seop's timely arrival, the security personnel agreed to release Hee-seop. Before leaving, Hae-jun gave Seop his watch and advised him to hold on for 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, a news van from the television station arrived at the inn, and reporters rushed upstairs. The security personnel received an urgent order to withdraw immediately. With no other options, they had no choice but to let Ju Seop go. Unexpectedly, as soon as they rushed to leave, the security personnel were chased and prevented by the reporters. Hae-jun took the chance to rush into the room and carry Ju Seop out. Hee-seop and Ju Seop were safely taken to the hospital. Jun-young wanted to invite Hae-jun to dinner as a thank you, but since she had no money, Hae-jun ended up covering the bill. They agreed happily and intended to go to the restaurant tomorrow. Upon arriving home, they encountered the mechanic that Hae-jun had mentioned last time. He was also Hae-jun's father in the future. Jun-woo set a condition for the car repair. Hae-jun needed to prep rare dinner for him. Except for dinner, Hae-jun was not allowed to bother him at another time. Of course, Hae-jun had to solve the Rubik in 4 seconds before Jun-woo. Hae-jun gave the Rubik's Cube a few quick twists and successfully solved it, then tossed it back to Jun-woo. Hae-jun opened the hood and explained the car's details. Hae-jun also advised Jun-woo not to tell anything what he had seen here to others. The time machine started to repair. The final victim was none other than Hae-kyung, the girl who always took time to bully others. The fact that Hae-kyung was one of the victims was also mentioned in Misuk's novel. It turned out that Hae-kyung was very fond of Misuk, and Misuk was well aware of those feelings. The trio and Misuk gathered at the Bongbong tea room. There was a girl in the group brought along some trendy hot pink bows. Hae-kyung initially scoffed at the bows, but when she saw Misuk looking adorable in one, she quickly grabbed the last bow and stuffed it into her backpack. Bongbong tea room's owner, Trung-ae, also took the chance to ask for one for herself. Based on the novel, Jun-jun guessed that Hae-kyung might have known a secret about Misuk. This made Misuk feel uneasy and view Hae-kyung with suspicion. Hae-kyung threatened Misuk to come to Seoul with her, or else the secret would be exposed. Misuk could be the actual culprit. Hae-kyung also suspected that this was likely the case. In fact, Hae-kyung knew exactly why Hae-kyung had run away from home. The homeroom teacher liked Hae-kyung's mother very much, so she often visited her restaurant to show support. One time, the head teacher witnessed Hae-kyung's mother being harassed by a drunken man. He quickly went to beat that man without saying. The twist was that the person being beaten was the parent of another student. Because of this incident, Hae-kyung witnessed her mother tenderly applying medicine to the teacher. Her mother even prepared a special kimchi dish that wasn't on the menu for the teacher. But Hae-kyung didn't know that her mother had pleaded with the teacher not to disturb their lives anymore for the sake of her daughter. She didn't reveal her owner love feelings. However, there are always a few people who enjoy gossiping. The parent's daughter had told bad gossips about Hae-kyung's mother to her classmates. She claimed that Hae-kyung's mother was seducing men everywhere. Even the homeroom teacher was said to be enchanted. Hae-kyung walked into the classroom and overheard everything. Blood rushed to Hae-kyung's head as she clenched her fist and charged at the girl. Fortunately, the head teacher rushed over just in time to intervene, or else a tragedy could have occurred. Feeling emotionally outburst, Hae-kyung directly criticized the teacher right in the middle of the classroom. The head teacher immediately responded by giving Hae-kyung a hard slap. When Hae-jun arrived, Hae-kyung was already grabbing her bag and preparing to leave. Hae-kyung came back to store and didn't see her mother. And there was a sausage dish in the kitchen which was the home teacher's favorite food. To protect Hae-kyung, Hae-jun was determined to end her plans of running away from school. Hae-jun advised Hae-kyung to leave a few words for their mother before she left home. After that, Hae-jun read the message he had written for her over and over again. Hae-kyung couldn't bear any more and shouted for Hae-jun to stop. But Hae-jun blamed for Hae-kyung. If Hae-kyung ran away, her mother would have to endure the hurtful words for the rest of her life. Compared to Hae-kyung, their mother would suffer many times more. Upon hearing that, Hae-kyung started to fall into deep thought. And her thought gradually disappeared after hearing from him. But since they were already outside, Hae-jun took the opportunity to take Hae-kyung to Seoul to unwind and relax. They arrived in front of a more than 300-year-old ancient tree. The ancient tree had lived for over 300 years. Suffering from many floods and droughts, it had just stood still. The ancient tree resembled a mother patiently finding her lost daughter for 40 long years. In the future, every time Hae-jun returned home from work, he would see Hae-kyung's mother posting missing person notices day after day. Everything always happened without ending. She also tried this year after year. Hae-kyung's age also went up with the missing person information. Until one day, when Hae-jun passed by that place again, he saw her fall down. Hae-jun hurriedly rushed to help her. It was then that Hae-jun knew that the arduous journey the mother endured in her finding for her daughter. It took a lot of years for her to find her daughter year after year. She always believed that her daughter was still alive but had chosen not to appear out of resentment towards her. She persevered for 40 long years, and even in death, she couldn't see her daughter. Hae-jun advised Hae-kyung not to rush into running away from home like that. When she turned to 20, he could go away from home to study university, and that time, she would be free to pursue her own love. In the future she would go for work. When she came back, her mother was too old. The resentment of today, when we look back, will only be seen as sorrow. After gaining clarity and perspective, Hae-kyung felt much lighter, and she didn't hate her mother anymore. At the same time Jun-young came to find Jun-e who was locked inside. Jun-young came to tell Sun good news. Hee-seop was unguilty and released. Afterwards Jun-young took Sun-e to the hospital to see Hee-seop. Sun-ae wondered why Hee-seop didn't mention that they had been together that night. If he had done like that he would not be arrested by the police and wouldn't have been injured. Upon hearing that, Hee-seop laughed. Hee-seop didn't want his lover to be affected by some gossips. Upon hearing this, Sun-ae suddenly buried her face in Hee-seop's chest, crying uncontrollably. Hae-young safely brought Hae-kyung back home. Upon arriving home, their mother had made seaweed soup for her daughter. Hae-kyung asked her mother why she had cooked kimchi soup that morning. Hae-kyung's mother also revealed the truth. She explained that it was the final dish to say goodbye to the head teacher. From now on, the head teacher would no longer interrupt their lives. She was deeply moved. Finally, Hae-kyung accepted that his mother and teacher can be together. Seeing warm moments of the two mother and child, Hae-young's heart, which had been hanging in uncertainty, finally felt relieved. He happily returned to have dinner with Jun-young. In the past, Jun-young never understood why her mother always treated her detestable father so well. It wasn't until today that she finally knew. It turned out that during the darkest times of their lives, they supported and comforted each other. Before long, Jun-young was completely drunk. Not only that, but Jun-young also insisted on going to the river and begged Hae-young to join her. Ms. Hae-young stood still, and Jun-young approached him with a pleading expression, asking him to join her. To her surprise, Jun-young, who had been playing with the fishing line, dozed off in Hae-young's arms. Finding no way, he could only carry her home. After dealing with the sleepy Jun-young, it was already close to 10 o'clock. Hae-young hurriedly brought dinner to Jun-woo. Jun-woo was engrossed in fixing the car when he was interrupted. Seeing at the clock, he immediately stood still. Oh no! He had promised his girlfriend to go to the movies tonight. Before he could even take a bite of his sandwich, Jun-woo hurriedly packed up his things and left. Hae-young recalled that he had once discovered his mother's and father's secret collection of movie tickets. Thinking about today being the first time the two of them would go to the movies together, Hae-young's heart raced as if it wanted to jump out of his chest. From childhood to now, he had never met his mother. So, Hae-young quietly followed behind Jun-woo. Seeing the girl sitting next to Jun-woo wearing a pink bow that looked just like his, Hae-young suddenly felt a wave of panic. He remembered what his grandfather had once said. After giving birth to Hae-young, his cruel mother immediately left. Even if she didn't hold her son once. Not only she also regarded Hae-young as a stain on her life. As the movie ended, Hae-young saw a beautiful girl in a long dress with a pink bow step out. Wasn't she the owner of the Bong Bong Tea Room? Hae-young was surprised and couldn't say anything. At that moment, Misuk, wearing the exact same pink bow, stepped out of the movie and met Hae-young. Hae-young looked back and forth between the two girls in front of him, feeling a bit confused. While Hae-young was still in a daze, a couple walking by accidentally bumped into him. Popcorn and drinks spilled everywhere. The couple not only didn't apologize but also showed a rude attitude. The tea room's owner immediately stepped up upon seeing this. Seeing the unfairness, she immediately stepped in to help. A moment later, Jun-woo rushed over to defend his girlfriend, who was arguing with them. At that moment, Hae-young realized that his biological mother was the owner of the tea room, Trung-ae. Hae-young recalled his grandfather's words. His mother had coldly left right after giving birth to him. She didn't even bother to hold him once. Hae-young continued to stare at his mother. Trung-ae didn't know why she felt indescribably hurtful. Hearing that, Jun-woo agreed. When he first met Hae-young, Jun-woo felt quite confused. It was as if there was an unexplainable connection between them. However, Hae-young did not feel any joy at meeting his mother because he had never liked that woman. Jun-young had a bad impression of Trung-ae ever since her first visit to the Bong Bong Tea Room. In this conservative era, the tea room owner was overly enthusiastic. During their first meeting, she rushed in wanting to feed Hae-young, which made him extremely uncomfortable. Perhaps it was due to her free-spirited nature that Trung-ae ultimately chose to abandon her son. Hae-young fled frustrated. But the most important thing was to find the true perpetrator behind the murder. Hae-young temporarily suppressed his emotions to meet Baek Young-seop for the investigation. Both two victims had close relationship with Baek Young-seop. It turned out that Ms. Lee and Ju-seop were a couple. Lee Ju-young came to this village because of Ju-seop. After organizing the memorial day for their parents, they would leave this place together. Lee Ju-young's hiding house was the abandoned house where Ki-eung-e was discovered. The day Hae-young lost track of Ki-eung-ae, she had secretly followed Baek Young-seop. Ki-eung-ae had also found the relationship between Ms. Lee and Ju-seop. Ki-eung-ae was so kind and wanted to help them. And in the midnight, Kyung went alone to bring the novel to the abandoned house. But it was surprised when Kyung-e was brutally murdered like this. At this moment, Hae-young remembered the packet of matches that the perpetrator left. Inside, a piece of paper included "Women reading books are very dangerous." Hae-young believed this was a warning. Just then, Jong-woo, who was fixing his car, knocked on the door, asking to borrow the bathroom. They quickly tidied up the pile of case files on the table to prevent Jong-woo from seeing them. However, they carelessly overlooked a matchbox. That night, Sun Ae sat reminiscing about her late sister. Memories flooded back to her mind. They had once joyfully imagined that if Sun Ae could become a novelist, she would definitely write her sister's name in her book. A person's life may last a lucky 100 years, but books endured forever. In other words, Kyung-ae would be remembered by everyone for eternity. The joyful moment teasing with her sister flooded back to Sun Ae, causing her deep pain and sorrow. Sun Ae hurriedly found the notebook to fulfill her sister's wish. However, the notebook had vanished without a trace. The next day, when Junyoung arrived in class, she heard everyone excitedly discussing how Mi-suk had become a rising star by publishing a novel at the age of 19. The next day, when Junyoung arrived in class, she heard everyone discussing how Mi-suk became a star by publishing a novel when she was 19. Frankly speaking, this was blatant theft. Sun E felt angered and she found Mi-suk to demand justice. Sun Ae accused Mi-suk of stealing her manuscript and publish it. She would not let it go and would expose everything. Mi-suk didn't feel worried because she knew Sun E had no evidence. Mi-suk even confidently threatened that if Sun Ae dared to say another word, the outcome would be the same as her sister's. Hearing such threats, Sun Ae indeed felt frightened. Right now, she had no evidence in her hands. The only person who knew her written novel had left and Sun E didn't find any glue. Moreover, if the matter came to light, her parents would only grow to resent Sun Ae even more. They were not at all proud to have a daughter who loved writing. Junyoung finally understood why her mother had refused to speak the truth all those years ago. Junyoung encouraged Sun Ae to lift her spirits. There were still people in the world who valued her as family and appreciated her novels. They loved and supported her in pursuing her dreams. Junyoung hoped that Sun Ae could truly become a novelist and not let anything hinder her aspirations. Junyoung even asked Hae-seop to persuade Sun Ae. Hae-seop sincerely told Sun Ae that once she decided to do something, she had to be determined to see it through. That novel belonged to Sun Ae, so she needed to protect it at all costs. She should never forget that he was always there, supporting her unconditionally. After finding out what had happened, Sun Ae's mother was so angry that she slapped her hard. How could she think her mother wasn't proud of her? She deeply regretted not being able to support Sun Ae in pursuing her dreams. Therefore, she would always be there to provide encouragement and motivation for Sun Ae. Not only that, but her usually gruff father personally drove Sun Ae to school. She couldn't believe her eyes. Finally, Sun Ae and Junyoung held hands and went to confront the publisher and Mi-suk's mother to set things right. Mi-suk, knowing Sun Ae had no evidence, confidently shot back at her. She even criticized Sun Ae for causing unnecessary trouble. How could a notebook be enough to write a whole novel? It would take an entire stack of paper. This contained all the crossed-out lines to help choose the most suitable words. Furthermore, Sun Ae could answer any questions because she was the true author. The editor quietly picked up the manuscript to read. After some time studying it, he decided to recall all the published books. Once the work was completed, he would have it republished. Sun Ae successfully reclaimed the novel that rightfully belonged to her. She also asked the publisher to add a special line. The book included a dedication to Kyung-ae. Finally, Sun Ae could fulfill her promise to her late sister. Junyoung also knew a little secret. The letter addressed to a secret person at the beginning of the novel that Sun Ae wrote was actually the initials she wanted to give her future daughter. In other words, that was Junyoung's name. Mi-suk had to face the wrath of her mother, who was extremely embarrassed by her daughter's dishonesty and lack of worth. Her mother regarded Mi-suk as a disgrace. Mi-suk wandered alone on the street. In order to take revenge on her cruel mother, Mi-suk called Min-soo to come and talk. When Mi-suk was 13, her older brother barged into her room and assaulted her. For years, her mother witnessed it but acted as if she were oblivious and walked away. After that, the frequency of these incidents increased. No matter how much Mi-suk screamed in pain, no one cared. Seeing her mother's indifference, Min-soo took advantage of the situation. Mi-suk could no longer bear it. She went to the police station to file a report. Mi-suk asserted that the true culprit was Min-soo, her alcoholic older brother. Moreover, she was the witness herself. At the same time, Jong-woo came to see Hae-jun. Earlier, Jong-woo had accidentally found a matchbox when he borrowed the bathroom. Jong-woo questioned Hae-jun about why the matchbox and the piece of paper found at the crime scene were at her house. Could it be that Haijun was the culprit? Haijun did not directly answer John Woo's rapid-fire questions. Haijun knew that John Woo trusted him not to be the murderer, which was why he had come to seek answers instead of going to the police to report it. Haijun swore that he was not the culprit. As for his true identity, everyone would find out once the car was fixed. After finally seeing John Woo off, Haijun wearily sat down on the steps. Seeing this, Junyoung gently approached to offer comfort. Thanks to this, Junyoung knew John Woo had misunderstood and suspected Haijun of being the culprit. Understanding Haijun's troubled state, Junyoung suggested they take a walk along the river to ease his mind. More than anyone, Junyoung understood the feeling of having to face family. Haijun didn't even realize how difficult this would be. The reason John Woo helped him conceal the matchbox might stem from a feeling that was both unfamiliar and familiar regarding Haijun. A strange feeling made John Woo choose to trust Haijun without hesitation. This feeling was similar to what he felt towards the principal. Even though he didn't know that Haijun would one day be his grandson, the principal treated him very well. So well that Haijun himself found it puzzling. Haijun confided that his grandfather was the only one living with him, yet he showed no care for him at all. From childhood to now, his grandfather had always treated Haijun like a stranger. His father had also been devastated since his mother left home. After that, Haijun's father moved to the United States to live alone. In a year, they only met briefly once or twice. So even if he were to travel through time, that thing called familial love simply did not exist. Junyoung felt painful. Haijun had endured the most painful times in solitude. The two hugged each other, savoring the brief, sweet moment of happiness. At the same time, after receiving intel from Min-soo, the police arrived at Min-soo's house to take him to the station. After finding the room, the police discovered a red string and several empty matchboxes. Despite having ample witnesses and evidence, Bitch and Jong-sik still had some doubts, because there were no pieces of paper in any of the matchboxes. Moreover, the handwriting in Min-soo's notebook was completely different from the writing left at the scene. Jong-sik suspected that the real culprit was someone else entirely. Hatever, the superiors, eager to quickly close the case, turned a blind eye to his suspicions. The news of Min-soo's arrest quickly reached Haijun. Time is tight, and Haijun must expedite the investigation to clear this injustice. Haijun suddenly remembered that before the incident happened, Min-soo had carelessly fallen and broken his arm. Since then, Min-soo seemed to have vanished from the world, only to unexpectedly reappear once he had recovered. After that, he was secretly blamed by Mi-suk. Haijun believed that Mi-suk alone could not have devised such a meticulous plan. It's very likely that someone is secretly helping her from behind the scenes. Haijun wanted to ask Haekyung for some information, because it was Haekyung who actually saw the perpetrator at the midnight. Haijun lingered around Haekyung to talk with her. Haekyung turned away without saying a word, showing no regard for him. Sun Ae and Hye-seo held hands and walked home together. They were laughing and joking at the door when, by chance, Sun Ae's mother saw them. She silently overheard their conversation. Sun Ae was very worried about her mother being home alone. Since her sister passed away, she always took out everything whenever mother missed her daughter. Sun Ae herself didn't know how to help her mother. After talking, they hugged each other to say goodbye. After hearing Sun Ae's feelings, her mother was deeply moved as well. She cooked some favorite foods for Sun Ae. That night, Haekyung, feeling frustrated, took the initiative to find Haejun. They discussed everything that happened that night. That night, when they were passing by the bridge, they saw Min-soo injured, lying helplessly below. Min-soo asked Hae-jaeyoung to call Mi-suk's daughter to come pick him up. They quickly got in touch with Mi-suk as well. Who would have thought that upon arriving, they would accidentally witness the scene of the killer attacking Teacher Lie. They couldn't see the killer's face clearly, but Mi-suk could. Mi-suk didn't allow them to call the police because she wanted to take this opportunity to blame for her brother. Mi-suk wanted to turn his brother into culprit in order not to endure from him for years. After saying that, Mi-suk took off her shirt to show the two of them the wounds on her body. Haekyung felt astonished without saying. She was sad to see her love suffering like that. So she promised to help Mi-suk conceal this matter. However, Dhe was still worried that if the killer was caught, Mi-suk would definitely be punished for providing false testimony. Mi-suk replied that the killer would never be caught. After knowing the truth, Haejun immediately went home to tell Junyoung. The killer was a man, and Mi-suk was the only witness who saw his face. Just as he was about to pick up the phone on the table, it suddenly rang. Bo Ryung told that Sun E was in danger. It turned out this afternoon Sun E went alone and she encountered Sun E to meet Ki Eung E. Seeing Bon Ryung, Sun E felt so scared due to his previous dirty intentions. Bon Ryung rushed to leave in order not to be punished. But when Bo Ryung returned, Sun E had disappeared. On the ground laid only a matchbox and Sun E's hairpin. Bo Ryung called the police, but decided not to care for it since the killer had been caught. Finding no way, Bo Ryung called Haejun and told him to stay still. Jun was tasked with finding Hee Seob to ask him to report this to the police immediately. Hee Jun would personally look for Sun Yi. At that moment, in the abandoned house, Sun Yi's hands were bound with a red cord. Next to the plastic bag covering her head was Sun Yi's novel. The killer carefully tore a piece of paper and stuffed it into the matchbox. After placing it in Sun Yi's pocket, the killer prepared to carry out the attack. In the dire situation, Bo Ryung had quietly made her way there. Bo Ryung rushed in and landed a few painful blows on the killer. Bo Ryung hurriedly shook Sun Yi awake, intending to get her out of that dangerous place. But just as they stepped out the door, the killer blocked Bo Ryung's way. In fear, Sun Yi tried to calm down and ran away from the place. The sound of the killer's brutal attacks echoed behind them. Tears streamed down her face, but Sun Yi couldn't stop running. After solving, the killer quickly chased after Sun Yi. No matter how hard she tried to run, Sun Yi couldn't escape his sight. Fortunately, Hee Jun appeared just in time. Seeing Hee Jun, the killer immediately made a run for it. Seeing that the police had also arrived, Hee Jun gave it his all to chase after the killer. However, despite running as hard as he could and sweating profusely, Hee Jun still lost sight of the killer. Arriving at the abandoned house, Hee Jun curiously stepped inside. What caught his eye was Bo Ryung lying in a pool of blood. Hee Jun rushed over to check, but it was too late. Bo Ryung had already lost her breath. As Hee Jun was so shocked, Baek Jong-sik also ran over. He saw Hee Jun's blood-stained hands in the plastic bag, along with the familiar note at the scene. There was no reason for Baek Jong-sik not to suspect Hee Jun. Hee Jun afterwards was arrested because of harming others. But Hee Jun couldn't explain anything. Hee Jun remained silent as Jong-sik handcuffed him and led him away, leaving Jun in shock. Baek Jong-sik had determined that Hee Jun was the culprit. So, no matter how much Hee Jun protested, Baek Jong-sik believed he was just making excuses. Hee Jun calmly replied. On the paper in the plastic bag was the handwriting left by the killer. Just by analyzing the handwriting, it could be determined whether Hee Jun was the killer or not. This was the simplest and most direct way to prove it. But Baek Jong-sik still doubted. But why Hee-jun have the plastic bag from bubble tea room along with the note? He just said that he found it. Baek Jong-sik slammed the table in anger. He felt like he was being played for a fool. Hee Jun knew that the current situation was not in his favor. Everything was messy and there were lots of ways to delete the suspicions. The police could compare the handwriting and could also wait for Sun Yi to wake up and take her statement to understand the whole story. Meanwhile, Sun Yi was injured and she was taken to the hospital. They found a plastic bag from the bubble tea room in her pocket. It was inside included that women reading books are dangerous. Jun Young went to the hospital to visit Sun Yi and happened to overhear the police reporting this news back at the station. Hee Jun had previously said that Mi-suk was not the killer, but she was the only witness who knew what he looked like. Not only that the real perpetrator was a man. Jun Young immediately went to confront Mi-suk. Jun Young got straight to the point and asked Mi-suk who the killer was. She also informed Mi-suk about the seriousness of the situation. The victim was their classmate and if Bo Ryung didn't appear in time, Sun Yi was the person to be harmed. Mi-suk showed her innocence, claiming she knew nothing at all. Seeing Mi-suk's indifferent demeanor as if nothing was wrong, Jun Young angrily revealed the truth that Hee Jun had been arrested by the police. It was possible that Hee Jun would take the blame for everything. Upon hearing that Hee Jun had been arrested, Mi-suk finally showed a hint of uncertainty. Mi-suk coldly pushed Jun Young away, returning to her indifferent demeanor. Heartbroken, Jun Young sat by Sun Yi's bedside, praying for her to wake up, tears streaming down her face. Hee Seob stood all night outside the hospital room, tears streaming down his face. Sun Yi's parents immediately noticed him. They recognized that he was the man spending the whole night with their daughter. Seeing him exhausted, they took him to eat. But Hee Seop had no appetite, constantly thinking of the girl he loved in the hospital. After the traumatic experience, he couldn't help but curse the perpetrator. Hee Seop promised to arrest him. Upon hearing, Sun Yi's father felt moved. "What kind of man are you, all skin and bones?" he remarked, then ate some noodles. Hee Seob hurriedly followed his future father-in-law's lead and bowed his head to eat. After the investigation, Jong-sik discovered that both his ID and teaching credentials were fake. Moreover, Bae Jong-sik found the information that Hee Jun left behind and couldn't prove Hee Jun's identity. Baek Jong-sik threatened Hee Jun to confess and receive leniency, otherwise, both Hee Jun and Jun Young would be arrested for espionage. After that, Hee Jun revealed that he had time traveled to this place and he urged Jong-sik to his house at once. He would personally provide them with a reasonable explanation. Hee Jun took both of them to his office. Inside were files related to the serial murder case. The principal noticed a newspaper from 1988. Meanwhile, everyone was living in 1987. Baek Jong-sik flipped through the documents on the table and discovered a report written by himself. What was going on, and Hae-jun realized if he didn't let them see, they would never believe him. At that moment, Hae-jun solemnly declared the truth. He had come from the future and, moreover, he was the principal's grandson. Jun-young was a relative of Baek Jong-sik. The principal then noticed the watch Hae-jun was wearing. It was identical to the one he had just bought that morning as a gift for his future grandson. The principal carefully examined it. After seeing the engraving on the watch, he immediately believed that Hae-jun was indeed his future grandson. He calmly explained to Baek Jong-sik that he had personally bought the watch that morning as a gift for his future grandson. Moreover, Hae-jun was attracted by Bae Jong-sik since the night before. Considering the timeline, Hae-jun could not steal the watch from him. Furthermore, the bond of family was undeniable. Every time the principal saw Hae-jun, he felt an unusual sense of familiarity and closeness. Just as they were engrossed in conversation, Young unexpectedly returned from outside. Without saying a word, she rushed over and hugged Hae-jun tightly. "Thank you for coming back safely," Young said, not even noticing the principal and Baek Jong-sik standing downstairs, staring at them. Sunny had woken up and was being interrogated by the police. Although she didn't see the killer's true face, she successfully helped clear Hae-jun's name. Sunny stated that it was Young who came to save her, not the actual killer. Hae-jun was officially released, but Baek Jong-sik still refused to believe his words. Though he said otherwise, as soon as they were outside, Jong-sik immediately turned to ask Young, "Who will your nephew Hee-seob end up marrying?" Young honestly replied that it was Sun-e. Bae Jong-sik expressed brightened and he smiled through the discussion. From then on, Baek Jong-sik began to closely monitor Hae-jun for several days. Hae-jun continuously tried to prove the truth that he was from the future. From saying a newspaper article about the highway construction that would appear on the front page to predicting the results of TV matches, everything matched perfectly, leaving Baek Jong-sik astonished. Though he maintained his tough facade, he began to believe Hae-jun's words were true. Seeing that his opponent began to trust him, Hae-jun quickly proposed a collaboration. The real killer was still at large. To ensure he faced appropriate punishment, it had to be the police, like Jong-sik, who arrested him. Since Hae-jun didn't belong to this era, and even if he caught the killer, he couldn't do anything. Finally, Baek Jong-sik agreed. Hae-jun handed over all the documents he had collected about the massacre to him. Mi-suk the only person to see the killer's true face. Therefore, Mi-suk was the only one who could help the police solve this case. Baek Jong-sik planned to go find Mi-suk's father to gather some information. To his surprise, as soon as he stepped outside, he ran into the principal. This time, the principal had come specifically to talk to Hae-jun. After knowing that Hae-jun was his grandson, the principal was very curious. He wanted him to drink a little. Facing his enthusiastic father, Hae-jun felt confused and complicated inside. In Hae-jun's memory, his grandfather always wore a stern, unapproachable expression. The principal didn't know about the changes he would undergo in the future. At present, he was still deeply expressing his love for his grandson. As time flowed, love remained eternal. The engraving on the watch was meant to express his eternal love for his grandson. Before long, the principal was completely wasted. Hae-jun decided to take his grandfather home, and after setting up the place to sleep, Hae-jun excused himself. On his way back, Hae-jun passed by the bubble tea shop and paused for a moment. For some reason, he found himself walking inside. Just as he was about to turn and leave, the owner, Trung-ae, called him back. She wanted to treat Hae-jun to a cup of tea, since their meeting at the movie theater. Trung-ae couldn't forget the way Hae-jun looked at her that day. Trung-ae wanted to know why Hae-jun had looked at her that way, only to ignore her afterward. Hae-jun didn't respond. Trung-ae then shared that she was planning to leave this village. Trung-ae didn't want to talk with anyone, even her boyfriend. But for some reason, when faced with Hae-jun, she unconsciously opened up about it. It was as if fate wanted Hae-jun to know. Hae-jun wanted to know why Trung-ae left her village, and however, she just said remarkably, if he wanted to know her, he should have tried to understand her sooner. Now it was too late. Feeling disheartened, Hae-jun left the tea shop to find John-woo. Hae-jun wanted to ask if anything had happened between John-woo and his girlfriend lately. John-woo said that their relationship was still going well. Hae-jun felt a bit confused for a moment but decided to set the issue aside for now. After that, Hae-jun went to the hospital room to visit Sun-ae. He took the opportunity to let her know that all suspicions had been deleted. While the three of them were chatting happily, Hae-jun's gaze suddenly landed on a pile of congratulatory gifts nearby. Tucked between the flowers was a separate bag with a note that read, "I'm so glad you're awake. See you soon." Perhaps the culprit had come to the hospital to destroy the evidence they had left behind. In other words, he wanted to kill Sun-e. The police just escorted Sun-ae home first. Seeing only 2 police officers arrive, Hae-jun felt a bit dissatisfied. Hae-jun suspected that the police didn't want to escalate the situation, which is why they were underestimating the victim's safety. Baek Jong-sik seemed at a loss for words, wanting to argue but not knowing how to respond. The more Baek Jong-sik thought about it, the more he felt that something was off. He hurriedly opened the evidence box and discovered that the piece from the separate bag, which was supposed to be there the night Sun Ae was kidnapped, had mysteriously vanished. At that moment, Jong-sik suddenly heard his two colleagues' complaints nearby. Heard that recently the higher-ups have been applying a lot of pressure, and the team leader is at risk of losing his job. That was the reason why the leader urged everyone to wrap up the case. The team leader wanted to convict Min-soo as the real culprit. Seeing the police trying to cover up the case despite the victim's safety, Hae-jun was extremely angry. Hae-jun went to talk to Sun Ae's parents to negotiate. Hae-jun wanted to contact reporters to make this matter public. He wanted to use public pressure to launch a large-scale investigation. Just like that, the killer didn't dare to take action. Only this way could Sun Ae be ensured. But to make the incident public, Sun Ae would need to come forward and recount the details of what happened that day. Although her face would be blurred and her voice changed. But the couple was still worried that the culprit would recognize their daughter and retaliate even more violently. While her parents were still hesitating, Sun Ae stepped out of the room. Soo-e agreed to reply for the interview. She didn't want to keep hiding in fear any longer. The next day Sun Ae received the interview from the television department. Baek Jong-sik also handed over the threatening note from the perpetrator to bolster Sun Ae's credibility. Hae-jun had also found out that the note in the separate bag had gone missing. All 2,000 police officers were trying to cover up the case. Hae-jun tried to announce the incident. Before long, a large number of reporters descended on the small village to cover the mass murder case. Faced with public pressure and accusations from the media, the police had to send officers to the victim's home for 24/7 protection. Everything was getting more and more complicated. In order to close the case as quickly as possible, the police were determined to pin the blame on Min-soo. Hae-jun and Baek Jong-sik had anticipated this and had prepared evidence to prove Min-soo's innocence. Baek Jong-sik hurriedly investigated all taxis that happened at the midnight. Hae-jun successfully obtained the records, which served as the evidence to help Min-soo. Hae-jun personally handed the evidence to the reporter. He wanted the reporter to upload this important news, and Min-soo would be considered unguilty and released. And shortly after being released, Min-soo immediately went to find Wai-suk. He wanted to take his little sister home and sort things out gradually. Jun-young happened to see this scene and approached, pretending to strike up a conversation as if he had an appointment with Min-soo. Min-soo could easily see that Jun-young tried to help his sister, but he had just released so his mood was quite good. Min-soo decided to let Min-suk off the hook this time. Min-suk was very grateful to Jun-young for his help. But no matter what, Min-soo had been released. All that awaited Min-suk ahead was a lot of trouble. Min-suk couldn't bear bursting into tears. Hae-jun passed by and ran into the bubble tea room's owner pack up her things. Trung-ae picked up the metal box, preparing to throw it away. Inside were a pack of children's clothes. Seeing her slightly pained expression, Hae-jun felt confused. It seemed that Trung-ae loved her unborn children a lot. So why did she coldly leave him back then? As Trung-ae finished packing and stepped outside, she saw Hae-jun lost in thought at the door. Since it was getting late, Trung-ae asked Hae-jun to take her to the bus station. They walked to the bus station. Hae-jun was curious why she had kept that box of children's clothing. Trung-ae looked at the box and smiled. All she prepared was for her child. Just thinking about seeing his child in the clothes he had prepared made Trung-ae feel very happy. After hearing that, Hae-jun felt even more confused. Obviously, Trung-ae was very excited about the arrival of her child. So why she had rushed to close the bubble tea room to leave the village? Trung-ae replied she couldn't know what she should do. After saying that, Trung-ae bid farewell to Hae-jun and boarded the bus. Feeling down, Hae-jun went to the principal's house to borrow a car and took Jun-young to the beach to relax. Blue sea and white clouds can lift people's spirits. Hae-jun also took Jun-young to eat rice cakes, and then they strolled along the beach. Taking this chance, Hae-jun would confess his feelings to Jun-young. From now, he would do something that she liked. Noticing Hae-jun's unusual behavior, Jun-young immediately pressed him for the reason. Hae-jun didn't say anything and said that he was still okay. Jun-young reassured him not to worry and just to wait for his return. That evening, the TV began reporting on the massacre in Gurong village. At the end of the program, Hae-jun unexpectedly appeared as a witness in the case. Hae-jun said that he had seen the killer in person that night. The perpetrator wearing a black hat and a black coat has a scratch on their back. After watching the news, Jun-young was astonishing. Why wasn't Hae-jun's face blurred? Could it be that Hae-jun intentionally allowed the killer to see his face? At that moment, Hae-jun walked on the street and waited for the perpetrator. The black dog was also hiding not far away, ready to ambush. They were just waiting for the right moment to capture the murder. Sure enough, not long after, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the quiet street. When they rushed to come in, they saw Trung-A. It turned out that Trung-A had seen the news. She rushed to come back. Trung-A knew what Hae-jun said was telling lies. Trung-A didn't Hae-jun face danger, so she came back to persuade him to leave. Hae-jun asked Trung-A why he ensured that he hadn't seen the perpetrator's face. Because if you saw his face, you wouldn't be able to not know who he was. Hae-jun didn't understand what Trung-A meant by that. Could it be that Trung-A knew who the real assailant was? Withdrawing his words, Trung-A took out a children's hat that she had knitted by hand. Hae-jun realized that the yarn used for the hat was identical to the one assailant to bind the victim. Trung-A bursted into tears. Trung-A decided to leave the village out of fear. She couldn't live next to that kind of person, and she even thought the child carrying his blood. She felt horrified. It was the reason why she didn't want the child to be born. When Hae-jun rushed to the garage, the car had disappeared. At that moment, Jong-woo was about to enter the house when he was startled by the noise from Bak Jong-sik hiding nearby. Jong-woo said nothing and turned away. Hae-jun heard the noise and hurriedly took a shortcut to block the tunnel entrance. Of course, he was knocked down by the car and fell to the ground. Jong-woo got out of the car and gazed tightly at Hae-jun. After seeing the footage of Hae-jun provoking the assailant on the news, Jun-young realized he was in danger. Jun-young hurried home, only to find no trace of Hae-jun anywhere. While feeling anxious, Mi-suk suddenly appeared at the front door. Jun-jun urgently asked Mi-suk who the perpetrator was. The plan to blame for this brother failed. Mi-suk didn't find any way to hide the secret. Mi-suk directly told Jun-young that the assailant was Jong-woo, the principal's son. Jun-young was surprised and couldn't believe anything. Jun-young turned away immediately to find Hae-jun. On the way, she didn't forget to bring along the police officer who was tailing them. At the same time, in the tunnel, Hae-jun bravely stood in front of the car to block it. In the end, Hae-jun fell down on the street. Jong-woo went with a sinister outlook. He kept beating Hae-jun until he couldn't stand. Jong-woo picked up a brick from beside him, preparing to deliver a fatal blow to Hae-jun. Before the difficult circumstance, Jun-young and Bak Jong-sik arrived in time. Jong-woo was caught red-handed on the spot. After knowing that his son was the assailant, the principal was so shocked. And know that Hae-jun was unconscious in the hospital. The principal was so worried that he rushed to the hospital to see how he was at that time. Seeing his grandson on the hospital, he felt immensely painful. Seeing this scene, Jun-young also cried. She felt heartbroken for Hae-jun, knowing what his father had done. She had come all this way to find the assailant, only to discover that the true assailant was her own father. No one could understand Hae-jun's pain. When the victims were enduring, all the assailant remained arrogant. Jong-woo kept insisting on going to the hospital because the pain from his injuries was unbearable. Moreover, Jong-woo said that there was no evidence to prove he was the assailant. The police officer looked at the crazed man before him and just wanted to bite his head off. In the hospital, Hae-jun was finally conscious. Upon hearing that the real assailant had been caught, he let out a sigh of relief. But he couldn't meet Jun-young directly. Because it was his father who had caused her to lose her family. So Hae-jun felt so guilty. Jun-young had red eyes. The one responsible for all this was Jong-woo, not Hae-jun. Jun-young didn't want Hae-jun to live with such thoughts. At the same time, Bak Jong-sik came to take care of Hae-jun. And by the way, he also mentioned the case. Jong-sik sighed and said that the police had searched Jun-woo's entire place but found no evidence. A clever person like that must have already tied everything up. If they could get Jong-woo's handwriting and compare it on the note at the scene, the case would be solved. Hae-jun racked his brain and tried to shift through his memories. When he was young, his father sent him a letter from America. I no ko emotilon bo on gue Thursday to my ve. Seeing the handwriting on the letter, his grandfather's expression changed. He angrily stole the letter from his nephew. Hae-jun realized that his grandfather soon knew his son was the perpetrator. Hae-jun changed clothing and rushed to meet his grandfather. At the same time, the owner of Bubble Tea Room brought a box and me, the principal. Trung-a took letters and said that these were letters Jun-woo wrote to her while she was in the US. The handwriting in the letter and the handwriting of the murderer left at the scene were identical. Jong-woo had just said that he wanted to write for the special he fell for. So Jong-woo wrote the letter on his own. First of all, Trung-a considered it so attractive. Until she saw the piece of paper that the murder left in the separate box. Trung-a wanted to tell the truth, but she thought of her own child. Everything she could do was just to go away. And now she wanted to bring all evidence to the principal. What he wanted to do was his own choice. The scene shifted to the principal standing in the fire and burned all letters. Hae-jun arrived just in time to see this and hurriedly ran over to snatch them back. Hae-jun couldn't believe that his grandfather was trying to hide the truth. But the principal had owned his sorrow. He didn't want his nephew was the son's perpetrator. He hoped that his grandson could live happily and lead a normal life. Hae-jun afterwards blamed his grandfather. Hae-jun didn't want the principal to use his future as an excuse. In the future, the principal, wanting to cover up his son's crime, never lived a single day in peace. And not only that, due to the psychological distress he was far away from his grandson. Until the moment he left his bed, Hae-jun could only see his grandfather's back. Although Jun-woo wasn't arrested, Hae-jun suffered from a sorrowful childhood. He felt depressed and cried out loud. Hae-jun coldly left away. He brought all evidence to the police. Everything was finally revealed. Jun-woo was captured and would spend the rest of his life counting ants and marking the days behind bars. Hae-jun intended to return tonight. He wanted to know whether everything would change in the future or not. Seeing the hesitation in Jun's eyes, Jun-on decided to give her an extra day to say goodbye to her parents. The next night they would return to the real life. After hearing that, Jun felt so happy. The next day, Jun went to find Hae-seop, who would be her father in the future. Jun used all her savings to buy Hae-seop the guitar he wanted for a long time. Hae-seop blamed Jun for spending a lot of money to buy a guitar like this. Just like that, Hae-seop grumbled and rammed for half a day. Jun was bored and didn't bother to listen, so he turned his head away. Although they criticized, Hae-seop liked this guitar a lot. Since he bought it, he kept holding it tightly. Jun wanted to use the guitar to bribe Hae-seop. Jun told Hae-seop to be kind to Jun-e. No matter what happened, they must be close to each other. It was time for Jun to leave. It would be a very long time before the three of them could meet again. Jun spoke with tears in his eyes, as if he wanted to cry. Hae-seop felt an indescribable sadness. Jun said goodbye to his father. She hoped that Seop could live happily and freely pursue his dreams. Hae-jun also finally came back to meet his father. Now, Hae-jun was no longer curious about the reason why the murderer had killed him, because that future could not happen again. When mentioning the future, Jun-e remembered one thing. On a day of repairing bikes like any other, Jun-e accidentally discovered a room hidden behind the door. Jun-e broke the window and sneaked into the Hae-jun's room. Jun-e had seen lots of reports about the incidents in the future. In the secret room, there was also a manual for the time machine. At that moment, Jun-e guessed that Hae-jun was someone else came from the future. Because in the future, Jun-e would send Hae-jun to serve the king, Hae-jun returned to seek revenge. Hae-jun refused to answer. Hae-jun only wondered why a smart person like Jun-e would carelessly leave behind those handwritten letters. It was one of the most important evidences. Could it be that Jun-e really loved Trung-ae? Jun-e took off his glass and answered. He always loved Trung-ae. Hoa ra kai kan no, Jun-woo kung song ma. It turned out that when he was young, Jun-e also lived without his mother's love. He always just found her mother reading books. He hadn't never feel the love from his mother. Until Jun-e was 7 years old, she had left. Leaving away, she still brought the book on her hand. Jun-e didn't expect that her mother chose books instead of him. Left by the person who was supposed to love him the most, Jun-e gradually became psychologically obsessed. Recalling it, Jun-e silently endured the pain himself. Jun-e vowed that if he had children in the future, he would not let them live a life lacking love like that. After hearing, Hae felt so angry. It was Jun-woo who destroyed everything. Just a little bit more, and Jun-e's dream would come true. However, Hae-jun was also very happy that his mother could escape from the sea of suffering and stay away from this worthless man. Upon saying, Hae-jun left a photo on the table and turned away. Jun-woo was amazed as he looked at the photo of himself and Hae-jun. Jun-woo didn't believe that Hae-jun was his son. Yet in the future, Jun-woo would personally end his son's life. Jun came to say goodbye to her mom. Jun-e was so heartbroken and asked and they could meet each other again. In about 34 years, in your very own house. Please said that they couldn't never met again. Jun calmly comforted Jun-e. Jun was very happy to be there to meet her mother during the most beautiful years of her youth. She was also very happy to be able to change everything. In the future, they would meet again. After saying that, Jun hugged her mother tightly before leaving. The car began to roll away. Arriving at the entrance of the high tunnel, Jun chose the time marker of the year 2021. However, after passing through the tunnel, both of them were surprised to find that they were still here. The surrounding scene had not changed. Could it be that they were stuck in this era and unable to return to the modern age? The time travel system was also running low on battery. It was also the first time she had encountered such a situation. Hae-jun pretended to be calm to reassure Jun. As long as they continued to fix the time machine, they would be able to return. But Jun was not easily deceived. She began to question the origin of the time machine. The answer left her speechless. It turned out that this miraculous machine was something Hae-jun had accidentally found on the side of the road. Both of them returned to their familiar place and found a small roadside cafe to drink and ease their sorrow. Jun curiously asked Hae-jun how he had found the time machine. Walking down the street, even finding money wasn't easy, let alone a huge machine like that. Hai-jun's memories came back. It rained cats and dogs that day. The GPS in the car suddenly malfunctioned, and the view ahead became somewhat blurry. Hai-jun tried to drive around but didn't know exactly where he was. Driving endlessly, they eventually reached a tunnel where they saw the time machine glowing brightly. Inside the car was a user manual reminding him to drive through the old tunnel ahead. Hai-jun carefully recalled. The strange occurrences didn't stop there. On the day he bumped into Jun while driving, he unexpectedly received a phone call. The voice on the other end said something very strange. He was the first man to solve this problem. He was distracted and bumped into Jun, so she pulled her back into the past with him. Looking back now, that phone call was truly baffling. On the way back, they talked together and laughed happily. Being stuck alone in this strange era would certainly be a bit scary. Fortunately, lovers can stand by each other and face their fears together. They had prepared for the worst to happen. Hai-jun began preparing the time machine. Although Jun outwardly said it was fine if they couldn't go back, her eyes betrayed her feelings. But in fact, she was very concerned about the time machine. She stood by and watching Hai-jun repair the time machine. Hai-jun, feeling annoyed, told Jun to go away and not to disturb him. Jun, feeling bored, went to find Sun-yi to talk. The first debut novel had been published. The trio of girls who had once bullied Sun-yi also came to buy her novel to support her. Their attitudes had changed. They promised not to bully Sun-yi again. Not only that, they wanted Sun-yi to come back school. Sun-yi gifted Jun her first published book. She even generously added her signature and a personal message from the author. Jun received the gifts and hugged Sun-yi tightly. This was the best gift Jun had ever received in her life. Hai-jun went to the principal's house to visit his grandfather. In front of the house, villagers had hung various warnings and admonitions. The principal sat inside alone, drinking to drown his sorrows. Seeing Hai-jun visiting him, he was so astonished. He thought Hai-jun would leave without saying goodbye due to his deep resentment toward the family. Hai-jun planned to do so, but the time machine was broken, leaving him stuck here. Before, Hai-jun had never wanted to say goodbye to his grandfather. Hai-jun believed that it was because of him that his grandfather had to go through such troubles. The principal gently comforted Hai-jun. He didn't resent towards him. In fact, he was grateful to him for giving him chance for making amends. With his grandfather's optimism, Hai-jun felt a bit more reassured. Knowing that the time machine would take much time to prepare, Hai-jun felt bored. Jun suggested that they should make the most of this time together, to create unforgettable memories with family. Hearing that, the next day, Hai-jun went to invite his grandfather to go fishing. They started to enjoy a peaceful and happy time together. Hai-jun had once dreamed of living a normal life. He imagined working until retirement, then having leisurely time to go fishing. But after going through so many upheavals, Hai-jun now wished to be with his family. His grandfather encouraged Hai-jun to pursue his dreams. He would do everything he could to help his grandson turn his dreams into reality. Meanwhile, Jun was cycling at the park with her parents. Jun-yi excitedly ran ahead. Hai-seeb was about to chase after her when he noticed Jun standing still, not moving. It turned out Jun couldn't ride a bike. Hai-seeb burst into laughter and kicked the bike. Jun angrily and gazed at him. Her father had a disability in his leg, which was why he couldn't teach her how to ride a bike. So it was the first time the father Hai-seeb taught her child to ride a bike. Before starting to ride, Hai-seeb promised that he would not let go. Jun walked happily. Turning back and not seeing anyone, she fell off. Jun, upon seeing what happened, scolded Hai-seeb for daring to bully her. She seemed to be hit a few minutes to let out her frustration. Hai-seeb eagerly offered Jun rice cakes as an apology. Seeing her parents laughing and joking in front of her made Jun feel emotional, and tears welled up in her eyes. This was an experience Jun had never had before. Jun saw her happiness with her parents when she was little. After saying goodbye to her parents, Jun headed back home. Upon arriving home, she found Hai-jun waiting in front of the door. Hai-jun wanted to tell her good news: the car had been repaired. Earlier, when Hai-jun was feeling overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, a young man unexpectedly appeared. He was the one who had called Hai-jun on that fateful night. Hai-jun immediately became alert. Little did he know that the other person would hug him tightly and say, "I miss you, Dad." It turned out that the time machine was Hai-jun's son left. He had come this time to help him repair it. The repairs were complete, and it was time for the two of them to return. Before leaving, Hai-jun went to see his mother one last time. In the end, Hai-jun finally understood why his mother had left him for his grandfather to raise him. Hai-jun finally knew the pain that his mother had endured. Hai-jun hoped that his mother would live well in the future. She shouldn't be guilty since he would not blame for her. It was his mother who had brought him into this world. Just this alone was enough for him to be grateful for a lifetime. After saying goodbye to their loved ones, the two of them began to prepare for departure. Jun worried that the time machine might malfunction midway. Hae-jun confidently assured her that this time it was truly fixed well. The young man told Hae-jun that during the massacre, he had not gone to the palace alone. It was he who traveled back in time to save his father. He was also the one who gave Hae-jun a chance to rectify the past. Thankfully, Hae-jun did not let him down. Fortunately, Hae-jun had changed everything. Hae-jun explained the reasons to Jun but didn't let her know the young man's appearance. They tended to stand before the tunnel and breathe deeply. Hae-jun adjusted the time to 2021, then accelerated smoothly as they passed through the tunnel. They hurriedly looked around. At that moment, their phones started ringing incessantly. Picking up their phones to check, both of them smiled contentedly at the same time. They had returned to their own era. Hae-jun received a call from his grandfather, while Jun got a phone call from her mother. Jun anxiously answered the call, and upon hearing her mother's voice, she began to cry. She came back to her current home. Their family no longer lived in the small house, they had moved to a larger one. The house was full of books. Her mother was using the pen that Jun had given her a long time ago. Seeing her mother back from the past, and noticing that her father's leg was no longer disabled, Jun hugged her mother tightly and burst into tears. After a month apart, Jun finally reunited with her mother. At the same time, Hae-jun also went to see his grandfather. The house was filled with pictures of his grandfather fishing. Since parting with his grandson in the past, he had taken up fishing to ease his sorrow. He wanted to fish everywhere to pass the time while waiting for his grandson to return. Jun became the editor's mother, and sometimes they would have the different attitudes, but her father would help them. Life was joyful and filled with laughter. With Seoul having opened its own bar, Jun often visited, listening to his dad play music while he wrote his novel. Each night Jun always followed the news that Hae-jun instructed. After that, Jun went to the television station's gate, waiting for his brother to go on a date together. Not only that, every once in a while, the three of them would go out together to eat and shop. Jun ran into Misuk again and they gazed each other. And then Misuk walked away. Hae-jun still hadn't told Jun that the person who helped them fix the car back then was actually his son in the future. The son stood distantly and watched his mother, unable to help but marvel at her. No matter what happened, those who belonged each other would have chanced to meet again. No matter the time or place, his parents would always meet and develop feelings for each other. Taking this chance, Hae-jun asked his son what Jun liked the most. But it was so surprised when the son said that his mother loved his father the most. But sometimes she always wanted to receive flowers from her husband. Following his son's suggestion, the next day Hae-jun bought flowers to give to Jun. The couple held hands and walked along the beach. Jun curiously asked Hae-jun about the time machine. It could only be used to travel through time one more time. Coincidentally, tomorrow was May 16th, the very day John Yubei Hae-jun committed his crime for the first time. They both decided to make one last trip back to 1987. They wanted to try their best to save the victims that lost their lives. Even if they got stuck, the two were willing to accept it willingly. Hae-jun believed that his son would surely be able to find the two of them. The meeting between Hae-jun and Jun was not a coincidence but rather a design of fate. The movie ends here. Thank you for following along with me throughout the film.